I stood in the marble hallway of Preston Associates, the most prestigious law firm in downtown Chicago, watching my family file into the conference room for Dad's will reading. My sister Elizabeth's Louboutins clicked against the floor. My brother James's Italian leather shoes whispered expensively, and Mom's pearls caught the light as she dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. None of them spared me a glance. Mr. Preston himself, Dad's lawyer for 30 years, approached the door, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his suit probably worth more than most people's cars. "I'm sorry," he said, not sounding sorry at all, "but this reading is for family only." "I am family," I said quietly. "Alexandra Bennett, the youngest daughter." He consulted his list. "I have specific instructions. Only immediate family members involved in the business interests are to attend." Elizabeth turned in the doorway, her perfect red lips curving in a smirk. "Oh, Alex, did you really think Dad would include you, after you abandoned the family business to play with your little investment company?" The door closed in my face with a soft, expensive click. I smiled, pulling out my phone and sending a quick text to my CFO, "Start the process." They had no idea that every property they thought they owned, from the flagship department store downtown to their precious McMansions in the suburbs, had been quietly purchased through my little investment company over the past 5 years. Bennett Capital wasn't just successful, it was a billion-dollar real estate empire, and I'd used it to buy every mortgage, every loan, every piece of property the family thought was theirs. Dad never knew. He was too busy grooming Elizabeth and James for succession, too focused on the failing retail empire he'd built, to notice his youngest had become his secret landlord. I checked my watch. The will reading would take about an hour, then the real show would begin. My phone buzzed, a message from Thomas, my head of legal. "Documents ready. Ownership transfer notification scheduled to send in 55 minutes. Perfect timing." I settled into one of the hallway's leather chairs, opened my laptop, and prepared to wait. Through the heavy door, I could hear muffled voices, the familiar cadence of Mr. Preston's formal tone, occasional exclamations from my siblings. A young associate hurried past, then did a double take. "Miss Bennett? Alexandra Bennett of Bennett Capital?" I nodded. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Would you like to use an office to wait? The conference room is occupied, but dash." "I know," I smiled, "that's my family in there, excluding me from my father's will reading." His eyes widened. "But your company, owns the building they're sitting in?" "Yes, along with every other property they think belongs to them." He looked like he wanted to say more, but professional discretion won out. He hurried away, probably to share this juicy bit of gossip with his colleagues. I didn't mind. In about 40 minutes, it wouldn't be gossip anymore. I used the time to review the numbers one last time. Bennett department stores had been failing for years, crushed by online competition and changing consumer habits. Dad had refused to adapt, sticking to his outdated business model while taking out more and more loans to stay afloat. Loans that I'd quietly bought through various subsidiaries. The flagship store alone was mortgaged for $12 million, the warehouse properties another $8 million, their personal residences, Elizabeth's lakefront mansion, James's sprawling estate, Mom's penthouse added up to nearly $15 million more. All owned, through a complex web of holding companies, by me. They'd find out soon enough, but first, they had to finish dividing up assets that hadn't really belonged to Dad in years. Right on schedule, the conference room door opened. Elizabeth emerged first, practically glowing with satisfaction. James followed, already on his phone, probably sharing the good news. Mom came last, still dabbing at her eyes. "Oh," Elizabeth said, noticing me. "Still here? I thought you'd have gotten the message by now." "I got several messages," I replied, standing. "Would you all mind joining me in the larger conference room? There's something we need to discuss." "We have nothing to discuss." James didn't look up from his phone. The will was quite clear. "Yes," I agreed, "but property ownership is about to become much clearer." Something in my tone made Mom look up. "Alexandra, what are you talking about?" "Follow me and find out." Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was the unfamiliar confidence in my voice, but they followed me to the larger conference room. Thomas was waiting, documents arrayed precisely on the polished table. "Everyone, please sit." I gestured to the chairs. "Thomas, begin the notifications." "Yes, Miss Bennett." Phones began buzzing simultaneously, Elizabeth's, James's, Mom's, even Mr. Preston's, who had joined us, looking confused. "What is this?" Elizabeth demanded, staring at her screen. Ownership transfer notifications, I said calmly. Technically, they're just confirming what's been true for years. Every property you think you inherited today? I own them. All of them. The silence was absolute. That's impossible, James finally sputtered. The flagship store was mortgaged to Phoenix Holdings, a subsidiary of Bennett Capital, 3 years ago. My house Elizabeth's voice cracked. Purchased through Lakefront Properties LLC, another Bennett Capital company, when you defaulted on the original mortgage last year. Mom's face had gone pale. The penthouse? That one I bought directly, I said gently, when Dad refinanced it to cover the store's Christmas inventory. Mr. Preston was frantically flipping through papers. This can't be legal. I assure you it is. Thomas handed him a thick folder. Every transaction was properly documented and filed. Your firm handled several of them, though the connection to M.S. Bennett was carefully obscured. Elizabeth stood so fast her chair tipped over. You snake, you've been plotting this all along. No, I corrected. I've been building a successful company while you all ran Dad's business into the ground. The fact that I was able to buy up your debts was just opportunity meeting preparation. We'll fight this, James declared. We'll sue Dash. With what money? I asked quietly. The stores are failing. The properties are mortgaged to me. Your personal assets are leveraged to the hilt. Face it, the only thing keeping this family afloat has been my little investment company all along. Mom's hands were shaking. Why? Why would you do this to your own family? Do this to you? I laughed softly. I've been saving you. Every time Dad needed a mysterious new investor. Every time the bank mysteriously extended a loan. Every time a mortgage miraculously got approved, that was me. I've been propping up this family for years while you all treated me like a failure. But the will. Elizabeth's voice was small. Go ahead. I gestured to the papers they'd been so excited about moments ago. Read it again. See how much those properties are worth now that you know who really owns them. Mr. Preston cleared his throat. M.S. Bennett is correct. Without the real estate holdings, the estate's value is primarily in the retail business itself, which according to these figures, is worth less than zero. I finished. The only thing keeping Bennett department stores operating has been my willingness to extend credit and delay calling in the loans. You wouldn't, James whispered. You couldn't just destroy everything Dad built. No, I agreed. I won't. But things are going to change. I pulled out another folder, my own documents this time. Option 1, you all stay on as managers of your respective properties, but with actual oversight and accountability. No more treating the stores like personal piggy banks, no more vanity renovations, no more hiding losses. And option 2? Mom asked faintly. I sell everything. The stores, the properties, all of it. You'll have 30 days to vacate. Elizabeth sank back into her righted chair. You'd throw your own mother out of her home? The same mother who just excluded me from Dad's will reading? Who spent years dismissing my success because it didn't fit her definition of achievement? I met her eyes. Yes, I would. But I'm offering you a chance to keep your lifestyles, you just have to earn them now. By working for you? James spat. By working with me, I corrected. By finally admitting that your little sister might actually know something about business. Thomas began distributing contracts. These documents outline the new management structure. You'll each retain your homes and positions, but with quarterly performance reviews and strict oversight of expenses. And if we refuse? Elizabeth's voice was ice. Then I begin selling properties next week. I already have interested buyers for the flagship store location. Tech companies love those old architectural details. Mom was reading the contract, her hand still shaking slightly. These terms, they're actually quite generous. Of course they are, I said softly. You're still my family. I don't want to destroy you. I just want you to respect what I built. James was staring at his phone, scrolling through property records. How did we not know? How did you keep this hidden? The same way I've done everything carefully, quietly, and without expecting any of you to notice or approve. Mr. Preston had finished reviewing the documents. These are remarkably thorough. And entirely legal. I learned from watching Dad's mistakes, I said. Everything documented, everything properly filed. No shortcuts, no handshake deals, no family favors. Elizabeth looked up from her contract. The management bonuses, they're higher than what we were making. Because I expect actual management now. real work, real results. Not just showing up to take credit and collect checks. And the stores? Mom asked. What are your plans? I pulled out another folder, the part I'd actually been excited to share before they excluded me from the will reading. Complete modernization. Online integration, experiential retail spaces, boutique pop-ups. Everything Dad refused to consider. I spread out the plans. We could make Bennett department stores relevant again, but only if you're all willing to actually work for it. They gathered around the drawings and projections, professional interest slowly overcoming personal shock. This could actually work, James admitted grudgingly. Of course it could, I replied. I've spent years developing these plans while you were all dismissing me as a failure. We never said Mom started. Yes, you did. Every time you excluded me from family business discussions. Every time you dismissed my suggestions. Every time you treated my success as somehow less valuable than the failing family business. They had the grace to look ashamed. So, I gathered the contracts. Decision time. Sign and start proving yourselves, or pack and start house hunting. Your choice. Elizabeth picked up a pen first, surprising me slightly. She'd always been the most dismissive of my achievements. You beat us, she said quietly. Fair and square, completely legally, while we were too arrogant to even notice. That deserves respect. James signed next, then Mom. Mr. Preston notarized everything, still looking slightly shell-shocked at the power shift he'd just witnessed. What happens now? Mom asked, handling her signed contract like it might bite. Now? Now we start turning this company around. For real this time. I checked my watch. Management meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't be late, I'm not as forgiving of tardiness as Dad was. They filed out slowly, decades of superior attitudes crumbling in the face of new reality. Mom lingered last. Your father, she said softly. He never knew? He never asked, I replied. None of you did. She nodded slowly. He would be proud. Not of us, but of you. Of what you've built. Maybe, I gathered my things. But I stopped needing his pride a long time ago. That evening, I sat in my office overlooking the city, looking at the familiar Chicago skyline. The flagship store's distinctive architecture stood out against the modern glass towers, beautiful, historic, but in desperate need of updating. Like my family's attitudes. My phone buzzed with texts. Elizabeth, reviewed the modernization plans. Have some ideas to discuss tomorrow. James, found 3 potential partners for the online platform. Mom, dinner soon? Just us? I'd like to hear about how you built all this. I smiled slightly. Amazing what a little leverage could do for family dynamics. Thomas knocked on my door. First quarter projections are ready. And the team has some concerns about the holiday strategy. Schedule a meeting, I replied. With everyone. Time to show them how real business decisions are made. They won't like having their authority questioned. They'll like bankruptcy even less. I turned from the window. Besides, they're not in charge anymore. They just need time to accept that. The next morning, I arrived at the flagship store early, walking the quiet aisles before opening. So much history here, so much potential, so much need for change. Elizabeth was already in the conference room, spreadsheets spread across the table. I was wrong, she said without looking up. About your little investment company. About you. I know. These plans. She gestured at the modernization documents. They're brilliant. We should have listened years ago. Yes, I agreed. You should have. James arrived next, then Mom, both armed with notes and ideas. Actually prepared, actually engaged, actually ready to work. Before we start, I said as they settled in, let's be clear about something. This isn't a punishment. It's an opportunity. To save the family business, to build something better, to finally work together as equals. As equals? James raised an eyebrow. You own everything. I own the properties, I corrected. But the Bennett name, the legacy, that belongs to all of us. If we're willing to earn it. Mom smiled slightly. When did my youngest get so wise? Around the same time she was secretly becoming our landlord, Elizabeth said dryly. We spent the next 4 hours discussing real strategies, real changes, real plans for the future. They actually listened to my ideas, actually considered my experience, actually treated me like someone who knew what she was doing. Amazing what property ownership could do for one's credibility. That evening, as I was leaving, I found Mom waiting by my car. I ordered dinner, she said hesitantly. To your office. If you're free. I considered declining, but something in her expression stopped me. Chinese? I asked. From Golden Palace? She smiled. Your favorite, I remembered. Over containers of kung pao chicken and hot and sour soup, she finally asked the question I'd been expecting. How did we not see it? All these years, all your success. You saw what you expected to see, I said simply, the rebellious daughter who rejected the family business, who had to be doing something small and insignificant because she wasn't doing what you wanted. We were fools. Yes, I agreed, but teachable ones, apparently. She reached across the desk, squeezing my hand. Teach us then, show us how to be better. I squeezed back briefly. That's what I've been trying to do all along. You're just finally ready to learn. 6 months later, the flagship store reopened after extensive renovations. Modern technology blended seamlessly with historic architecture. Online orders could be picked up in beautifully designed lounges. Local artists' works hung in carefully curated spaces. Elizabeth had thrown herself into the experiential retail concept, creating spaces that actually drew younger customers. James had built a robust online presence that complemented rather than competed with the physical stores. Mom had become our best brand ambassador, sharing stories of the store's history while embracing its future. Standing in the restored grand entrance, watching customers actually shopping instead of just browsing, I felt a moment of pride, not in the property values or the profit margins, but in the family legacy we were finally building together. Quite a change, Elizabeth said, joining me. The store, or us? Both. She smiled a real smile, not her old superior smirk, though I'm still not over you secretly buying everything out from under us. Consider it a very expensive lesson in humility. Consider it learned. She linked her arm through mine. Little sister. Up in Dad's old office, my office now, his portrait still hung on the wall, but it wasn't alone anymore. Next to it hung the first dollar earned after the reopening, and beside that, a framed copy of the property deed that had started it all. A reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's simply having the patience to wait until everyone else realizes what you've known all along. That success doesn't always look the way people expect. That family isn't about control but cooperation. That sometimes the best way to save something is to be willing to change everything. And that sometimes, just sometimes, the best business decision is to buy your own family's property right out from under them. Just to teach them to pay attention. What do you think about Alexandra's story? Was she right to secretly buy her family's properties, or should she have been more direct about her success? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow for more stories about family, business, and the courage to succeed on your own terms.
I never thought I'd return to Grandpa Henry's farmhouse like this. Life has a strange way of pulling you back to places you thought you'd left behind, especially when someone you trust betrays you. It all started on a regular Saturday afternoon. I was sitting in my Colorado Springs office, just finishing a research report on water-saving methods for farms. That's when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't pick it up, but then I saw the name, Henry, my younger brother. We hadn't spoken much in the past few years. He was always busy with some new business idea, and I was always caught up in my work as a scientist. Still, something told me to answer. Henry's voice came through the phone, sounding far too calm and casual. "Hey Kelly, just thought I'd let you know I sold the farm," he said like it was no big deal. I blinked, confused. "Wait, what? You sold the farm?" "Grandpa's farm." "Yeah," he said proudly. "Got $5 million for it." My heart dropped. That farmhouse wasn't just land and buildings. It was our childhood summers. It was Grandpa Henry's whole life's work. "You sold it without even telling me?" asked, trying to stay calm. Henry sighed, clearly annoyed. "Come on, Kelly. You haven't been there in years. You're too busy living your scientist life in Colorado Springs. The farm was just sitting there. I did what needed to be done." I clenched the phone tightly in my hand. "You had no right to sell it. He laughed, a cold, sharp laugh. Actually, I did. Grandpa made me the executor. That means I get to make the decisions. I was speechless. My brain tried to process his words. Then I asked, "Where's the money?" There was a long pause. Then he said with a chuckle, "Well, I spent it." My whole body went cold. "What do you mean you spent it?" "Joyce needed it," he said. Her business was struggling. She had this amazing opportunity, and she needed cash quickly. So I helped her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He had sold a $15 million property for just $5 million, and he spent every last cent on his girlfriend's business. I canceled my business trip right away and rushed home. I was burning with anger. I had no idea what I would say to him when I got there. But when I finally arrived, something unexpected happened. I smiled. You see, the farmhouse he sold wasn't the real family estate. Grandpa Henry was a clever man. Years ago, he had quietly bought more land and built a second, hidden property, one that only I knew about. The one Henry sold was just the older part. Henry thought he had ruined everything. But really, he had no idea what he had missed. It felt like I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, and I could hardly believe what I had just heard. Henry had sold our grandfather's farm for half of what it was worth and used all the money on his girlfriend Joyce's business. She needed it more than you, Henry said, trying to defend himself. I was shocked. You sold our family's land. That place meant everything to us. Henry didn't seem to care. Come on, Kelly. You've got your life all figured out. You've got a great job, your research projects, and your big career. You don't need that old farm like I do. What's the big deal? I couldn't take it anymore. I hung up the call without saying another word. If I kept talking, I might have said something I'd regret. My hands were shaking with anger. Within an hour, I had booked the next flight to Los Angeles, California. On the flight, I couldn't stop thinking. My thoughts were spinning. How could Henry do something like this? I always knew he was careless and impulsive, but this wasn't just a bad decision. It felt like betrayal. Like he had stolen something that wasn't his to take. But the longer I sat with my thoughts, the more my anger turned into something stronger. Determination. Henry thought he could get away with this. He thought no one would question him. But he had forgotten something important. Grandpa Henry was a wise man.
I had a feeling he saw this coming.
When I reached the farm, my heart sank. The place looked abandoned and sad. Grass had grown wild, fences were falling apart, and the buildings looked worn down. Still, memories came rushing back. Early mornings feeding horses, the smell of fresh soil after it rained, and Grandpa's warm laugh from the porch. Now all of that was gone. Sold like it didn't matter. I needed answers, and I knew just who to ask. Douglas Adams, Grandpa Henry's lawyer for over 32 years. I met him the next morning in his San Diego office. He looked at me as I walked in, his sharp eyes calm but watchful. "I was wondering when you'd come," he said, motioning for me to sit.
I didn't waste time.
Henry sold the farm without asking me. He says he had the right. Douglas sighed and tapped a thick folder on his desk.
Yes.
I got the sale notice yesterday. So that's it? He wins. I asked, feeling helpless. Douglas gave a small smile. Not necessarily. Did you ever read your grandfather's full estate documents? I read the will. It left everything to both of us. Henry was named the executor. Douglas nodded. That's true. But your grandfather was very cautious. He slid the folder toward me. 3 weeks before he passed, he filed a special amendment. I opened the file slowly. The first page caught my attention. Character clause. Douglas's face turned serious. Henry loved Henry, but didn't fully trust him. So, he added a rule. If either of you tries to sell the farm without the other's agreement, ownership automatically and permanently goes to the other person. My eyes widened. Henry had tried to cheat me, but he had just handed the farm over to me. I blinked, trying to take in what Douglas had just said. Are you saying the farm is mine? Douglas leaned back in his chair, calm and sure. Yes, Kelly. The sale is void. Because of your grandfather's special clause, the farm now legally belongs to you. Relief and surprise washed over me at the same time. I could hardly believe it. All this time, I thought everything was lost. But now it was mine. Henry doesn't know about this, does he? I asked, almost whispering. Douglas shook his head. No, and I suggest we don't tell him just yet. Not until we meet with him officially. Let's do this the right way, in a legal setting. I leaned back in my seat, still trying to understand everything. Grandpa Henry had known. He had seen the way Henry behaved, his selfish choices, his greed, and he had planned ahead to protect the farm. My hands curled into fists. So, what happens now? Douglas checked his watch. Now, you prepare yourself. Once Henry finds out, he won't take it well. He'll try to fight it, and something tells me he'll make a scene. That evening, I drove back to the farmhouse. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the wild grass and empty fields. I stood there in silence, taking it all in. This land wasn't just dirt and buildings. It was my grandfather's life work. His love, his passion, everything he believed in. And Henry had tried to sell it all, for a quick payout and his girlfriend's failing business. I took out my phone. Tomorrow, Henry would find out the truth. He thought he had won, but he had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I woke up early. My mind was full of thoughts about what was about to happen. I knew Henry wouldn't handle it well. He had no clue that his so-called success was about to fall apart. By 9 a.m., I was sitting across from Douglas again in his office. Everything was set for a legal meeting. Henry and his lawyer were expected any minute. Douglas looked calm, like he had done this many times before. But I could tell. This case was personal. Henry showed up 20 minutes late, of course. He walked in with that same smug smile, wearing a fancy suit that he probably bought with the money he got from the farm sale. Joyce followed behind, looking bored and irritated. She didn't want to be there. His lawyer looked young, nervous, and clearly overwhelmed by it all. The moment Henry saw me, he smirked. Wow, Kelly. Didn't think you'd care enough to show up. I didn't respond to the jab. I just pointed to the chair across from me. Sit down, Henry. He dropped into the chair with a loud sigh. Let's make this fast. I've got better things to do. Douglas ignored his rude tone and cleared his throat. Henry, I believe you already know Kelly has serious concerns about the sale of your grandfather's farm. Henry rolled his eyes and leaned back. We've already talked about this. But little did he know, everything was about to change. I was the executor, Henry said, his voice full of pride. I had every legal right to sell the farm. Douglas stayed calm and slowly slid a paper across the table. Actually, you didn't. Henry frowned but picked up the paper anyway. As he read it, the proud look on his face disappeared. His smile faded, and his hands gripped the paper tighter. For the first time in years, I saw something I never expected from him. Real fear. What is this? He asked, his voice shaky, not confident anymore. Douglas rested his hands together and said, That's the updated deed your grandfather filed just 3 weeks before he passed away. It has something called a character clause. It says if one grandchild tries to sell the farm without the other's agreement, the ownership will automatically go to the one who is left out. Henry's face went pale. No. That's not possible. Oh, but it is, I said firmly. The moment you signed the deal to sell the farm, you gave up your rights. The farm belongs to me now. Henry slammed the paper on the table. This is a setup. Grandpa wouldn't do this to me. Douglas stayed calm and said, Henry Carter knew both of you well. He trusted Kelly to protect the farm. And he knew you might act selfishly. So yes, he prepared for this. Henry quickly turned to his young lawyer. Do something. The lawyer shifted in his seat, looking nervous. Legally, the updated document is valid. The sale doesn't count anymore. Joyce, sitting beside Henry, crossed her arms and said sharply, So what now? The money's gone. We already spent it. That's not my problem, I said coldly. Henry's face turned red with anger. He stood up fast, pushing his chair back. You can't just take everything from me. I stared him in the eye. I didn't take it from you. You gave it away. The room fell silent. The truth had hit him hard. He had lost everything. Douglas quietly slid another document forward. There's one more thing. As the executor of the estate, you were supposed to protect your grandfather's wishes. But by selling the farm without Kelly's agreement, you broke those duties. He tapped the document. As of right now, you're no longer the executor. Henry looked at the paper like it was the end of the world. You're joking. No, I said, leaning closer. I'm in charge now. Suddenly, Joyce stood up and grabbed Henry's arm. Henry, we need to go. But Henry didn't move. He just kept staring at the document, frozen in place, finally realizing he had lost it all. I could tell what was going on in Henry's mind. He had lost it all, the farm, the money, and the control he thought he had. But Douglas wasn't finished yet. He picked up one more file from the table. There's one last thing, Douglas said. Since the sale of the farm is invalid, that means you have to pay back all the money you received from it. Henry swallowed hard. I don't have the money. I leaned back in my chair and looked straight at him. Then we have a big problem, don't we? Joyce, clearly angry now, pulled on Henry's arm again. Henry, let's go. They started walking toward the door, but before they could leave, Douglas spoke again. Oh, and Henry, he added. Henry stopped and turned around slowly, his shoulders stiff. If you try to fight this in court, Douglas said in a calm but serious voice, we'll have to do a full audit of the estate. That means we'll check every single thing you've done with the money since you became executor. Henry's jaw tightened. He understood exactly what that meant. Every shady deal, every dollar he secretly gave to Joyce's failing business, it would all come to light. He didn't say a word. He just stormed out, his face red with frustration. Joyce followed behind, her heels clicking loudly on the floor. As the door shut behind them, I finally let out a long breath. It was over, or at least I thought it was. That night, I sat on Grandfather Henry's old porch, staring out at the land under the cool California night. The air was still, and everything was quiet. I should have felt peace, maybe even joy, but I didn't. Something didn't feel right. Henry was careless, yes, but not dumb. He had to know this could happen. He had to know Grandpa might have left something in place to stop him. So, why did he go through with it? Why was he in such a hurry? Then my phone buzzed. A message from Henry. We need to talk. I stared at the text, my stomach twisting. This wasn't over. I looked at the message for a long time. A part of me wanted to ignore it. I had already won. The farm was legally mine. Henry had lost everything. But I knew my brother too well. He never walked away without a backup plan. Finally, I replied, meet me at the farmhouse. 1 hour. By the time I got there, the sky was dark, and the air smelled like rain was coming. The fences were still broken, the land still messy and overgrown. The farm had been left alone for too long. Henry arrived 10 minutes late. His SUV headlights cut through the shadows. He stepped out slowly. He looked different, tired, maybe even worried. Joyce wasn't with him. This time it was just us. He kept his hands in his pockets and avoided my eyes. You got what you wanted. I leaned on the porch railing. Did I? Henry gave a short, bitter laugh. Don't start with a speech, Kelly. You think you're the hero here? He waved his hand toward the land. You left. You had your big career, your research, your perfect life. I was the one who stayed, Henry said quietly. I was the one who took care of everything. I looked at him carefully, not angry, just tired of the lies. You didn't take care of anything, Henry. You sold Grandpa's farm just to get some quick cash. Then you spent the money like it meant nothing. His jaw tightened. I was trying to build something. I crossed my arms. And where is it now? He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. Something in my stomach twisted. I could feel something deeper was going on. Henry, this isn't just about the farm, is it? He looked away, eyes moving quickly, like he didn't want to meet mine. And for the first time in years, I saw something real, fear. I stepped closer. How bad is it? Henry ran a hand through his hair, clearly stressed. I borrowed money from Grandpa's other accounts. My heart dropped. What did you say? He let out a shaky breath. The tax accounts, the maintenance funds, the savings, everything. I took money from all of it. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. His voice started to shake. But the investment failed. The developer went bankrupt. And now, he let out a weak, broken laugh. Now it's all gone. I felt sick to my stomach. I could barely speak. How much? His voice was barely a whisper. $750,000. The world felt like it was spinning. I pressed my fingers to my forehead, trying to stay calm, trying to think. So that's why you were so desperate to sell the farm. Henry nodded, eyes full of regret. I thought I could fix everything before anyone found out. I closed my eyes. And Joyce. He gave a cold, bitter laugh.
She left.
Took what little money was left, and ran the second she realized I had nothing more to give. A long silence followed. I should have walked away. I should have told Henry this was his problem to fix. But then I thought of Grandpa Henry, how he always believed in giving people second chances. And even after everything, Henry was still my brother. I pulled out my phone and called Douglas. He picked up on the second ring. I need to see you, I said. Right now. An hour later, Henry and I sat in Douglas's office. Douglas, always calm, didn't even look surprised when I told him everything. He just opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Your grandfather knew something like this could happen, Douglas said, sliding the file toward me. So, he made a plan. I flipped through the pages, my heart beating fast. Inside the file were insurance papers, safety plans, and legal documents, things Grandpa Henry had put in place a long time ago, before he passed away. Douglas tapped one of the documents. This is an insurance policy that covers mistakes made with the estate's money. If we use it, it can help recover up to $900,000. Henry let out a breath like someone had hit him in the stomach. So, we're saved. Douglas's eyes narrowed.
Not exactly.
There are rules. Henry tensed. Of course there are. Douglas leaned forward. First, you must sign a paper saying you admit to misusing the estate's money. You have to officially take responsibility. Henry's body stiffened. And if I don't? Douglas's face stayed serious. Then Kelly will have no choice but to take legal action against you. That would lead to a full check of all the estate's money records. He paused, then added, and with the proof we have, it's very possible you could be charged with fraud. Henry's face went pale. Fraud? Yes, Douglas said calmly. And that could mean jail time. Henry's hand shook as he rubbed his face. What else? Douglas folded his hands. You'll have to attend financial counseling, and you'll pay for it yourself. Also, you won't be allowed to be involved with the estate ever again. Henry looked at me, his voice softer now. And you're okay with all this? I looked him in the eye. I don't want to see you in jail, Henry. But I won't cover up what you did. You have to face the results of your choices. For a moment, he didn't move. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay. Douglas pushed the paper across the table. Henry picked up the pen with shaking hands and signed it. And just like that, it was done. Outside, the night was quiet. We stood by Henry's car, looking at the lights of the city in the distance. He stared at the skyline and said softly, I don't know what to do now. I waited before answering. You start over. Henry gave a weak laugh.
How?
I looked at him closely. He was still the brother I had grown up with, the one who had lost his way chasing the wrong dreams. The farm still needs work, I said after a moment. You could help.
He turned to me surprised.
You'd let me? I nodded. You're still my brother, Henry. But this isn't about money anymore. If you want a second chance, you'll have to earn it. He didn't answer right away, but after a long pause, he nodded. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to fix what had been broken. The days after that meeting with Douglas were heavy. The air felt thick with silence, and both of us carried the weight of everything that had happened. I had spent so many years being angry at Henry. I truly believed he would never change. So seeing him now, quiet, unsure, and no longer acting like he knew everything, felt strange. We stood together on Grandpa Henry's farm, looking at the tall weeds, broken fences, and the old house that once used to be full of life. "I hardly recognize it," Henry said softly. I glanced at him. Well, that's what happens when someone tries to sell a place instead of taking care of it. Henry let out a deep sigh, but didn't say anything back. He wasn't arguing anymore. For the first time in a long while, I saw something new in him change. Over the next week, we worked side by side. We cleared out the old barn, fixed broken fences, and looked at all the damage caused by years of being ignored. Henry wasn't used to this kind of work. At first, he struggled. He wasn't strong with tools or farm work. But he came back every morning, and what surprised me most, he never complained. One evening, after a long day of fixing the porch steps, I found Henry sitting quietly on the front steps of the house. The sun was setting, and the golden light made the fields glow. It was the same view Grandpa used to sit and enjoy every evening. "I used to hate this place," Henry said, his voice quiet and unsure. "I thought it was holding me back. I thought it reminded me of everything I didn't want to be." I sat down beside him, wiping the sweat off my forehead. "And now?" He was silent for a while. Then he sighed. "Now, I think I understand." Grandpa wasn't trying to trap us. He was trying to give us something that mattered. I nodded, watching the wind blow through the tall grass. He was always thinking 5 steps ahead. Henry gave a small chuckle, but it wasn't really a happy one. "Yeah, and I never thought further than the next dollar." The next few months became a routine of hard work and quiet change. Henry kept showing up. I didn't think he would last, but he proved me wrong. I expected him to quit or walk away the moment things got hard. But he stayed. He learned how to repair farm tools, how to plant crops properly, and how to care for the land, just like Grandpa had always done. And slowly, I realized he wasn't just doing this to fix things between us.
He was doing it for himself, too.
One afternoon, we stood inside the cleaned-up barn. The smell of fresh hay filled the air. Henry wiped his hands on his jeans and looked around. "It actually looks like a real farm again," he said. "That's because it is," I replied. He took a deep breath and nodded. "Yeah, it feels different now." I looked at Henry closely. "You seem different." He paused, then gave a small nod. "Yeah." For the first time, I believed him. 1 year after everything had gone wrong, we held a small ceremony to honor Grandpa Henry. We invited neighbors, old friends, and the few people in town who had known him well. Henry stood beside me as we revealed a memorial plaque near the farmhouse. The plaque had simple words written on it. "Henry Carter, a man who built more than land." As the sun set over the farm, I realized something important. Grandpa had planned all of this. Not just the farm, not just the money, but us. He knew that Henry and I would never truly understand each other unless something forced us to work together. He had added rules and safety nets, knowing Henry's weaknesses, but he hadn't given up on him. Instead, he left a way for Henry to change. And, in the end, Henry had taken that chance. Later that night, when everyone had gone home, I found Henry sitting on the porch, looking up at the stars. "Still thinking about going back to Los Angeles?" I asked. He gave a small smirk. "Nah. Turns out, I like the quiet." I sat beside him, the cool night air wrapping around us. Everything felt peaceful. After a while, Henry asked, "Do you think Grandpa knew this would happen?" I thought about it for a moment before replying. "Yeah. I think he knew exactly what he was doing." Henry let out a quiet sigh and smiled a little. "Yeah, me too." And for the first time in a very long time, we sat there, not as enemies, not as people fighting over the past, but as family. My name is Betty, and I'm 16 years old now. When I think about everything that's happened, it's hard to believe how much my life has changed in just 3 years. I guess that's what happens when your whole world flips upside down, twice. It all began when I was 14. My parents got divorced, and my mom got to keep the house. Of course, I stayed with her. Dad agreed to pay a lot of money to support her. One time, I heard Mom talking on the phone, bragging that she finally got what she deserved. I kept asking her, "Why did you and Dad break up?" I must have asked 100 times during those first few months. But she'd just shake her head and say the same thing every time. Your father made his choice, Betty. He doesn't want to be part of our lives anymore. He doesn't want to see you. It's better if you just accept that. But how was I supposed to accept something that didn't make sense? My dad used to call me his little scientist. He'd spend hours helping me with schoolwork. How could he suddenly stop being my dad? It hurt so much that sometimes I couldn't even breathe when I thought about it. Then one day I started getting emails. They came on every holiday, always right on time. The messages were simple, just a few kind words filled with love and encouragement. The first time I saw one, my heart skipped a beat. I just knew it had to be from my dad. Who else would say, "Keep reaching for the stars, sweetheart"? That's what he used to tell me every night before bed. I never told Mom about the emails. I couldn't. Just saying Dad's name made her face go cold, like she tasted something sour. After the divorce, Mom stopped working. She said she needed time to heal, but I wasn't fooled. The money from Dad was more than enough for us to live well. She spent her time changing the furniture, painting the walls, and going to yoga classes. She kept saying she was trying to find herself. Then one day, Eric showed up. Mom said she met him at yoga. Suddenly, everything in the house was about fresh starts and becoming a blended family. I could tell what was going on. Eric and his kids, Larry, who's 14, and Emily, who's 12, had moved in with us. That's when everything really changed. Mom became a totally different person. She treated Larry and Emily like they were made of glass, like they might break if she wasn't careful. She spent hours doing Emily's hair and cooking Larry's favorite foods. Meanwhile, I sat at the kitchen table feeling like I didn't even exist. One day, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Mom," I said, "it's like you forgot I'm even here." She gave me a look I'd never seen before. It was part annoyed, part sorry. "Don't be selfish, Betty," she said. "Larry and Emily lost their mom when they were very little. They need more love and care. You're old enough to understand that." After that, Mom got really into taking family photos. Every weekend, she'd dress all of us up like we were going to a fancy event. She made sure our clothes matched perfectly. Larry and Emily always got new outfits for the pictures, while I had to wear whatever I had that fit the colors they were wearing. "Betty, stand behind Larry. No, move to the left. Try to smile more," she'd say, moving her phone to find the best angle. "Emily, sweetie, tilt your head a little." Perfect. These photo shoots would last for hours sometimes. Click after click, pose after pose, until Mom got the perfect shot to post online. But the worst part came later. At family get-togethers, she'd show the pictures to everyone. "Look how many likes this one got," she'd tell Aunt Ashley or Uncle Benjamin. "Don't we look like the perfect family? The kids look amazing together." You'd never guess they haven't always been siblings. I'd just stand there, feeling like I was acting in someone else's story. Mom made it sound like we were this happy blended family, but the truth was different. The pictures never showed how Emily rolled her eyes every time I walked into a room or how Larry acted like I wasn't even there. The hardest part wasn't the fake smiles or posing for hours. It was losing my connection with Grandma Margaret, my dad's mom. After the divorce, Mom said I couldn't visit her anymore. That broke my heart. I missed Grandma's warm hugs and how she'd sit and listen to me talk for hours, not like Mom, who just looked at her phone while I spoke. Now all I had were memories, baking cookies in her kitchen, laughing with her, and feeling loved. I was stuck with Mom's side of the family, and they completely believed her story about our perfect blended family. They acted like Larry and Emily were the greatest kids ever and praised Mom for being such a wonderful stepmom. Meanwhile, I just sat in the corner, wondering if I had turned invisible. As time went on, the gap between Mom and me got bigger and bigger. It was like we were living in 3 different worlds. Mom was all about her new family. Everything was planned around Larry and Emily, what they liked, what they wanted. Family movie night? Larry, what do you want to watch? Weekend plans? Emily, honey, where should we go for lunch? No one asked me anything. My opinion didn't count anymore. I just sat quietly while Mom smiled and leaned in close to hear what restaurant Emily wanted to try or what movie Larry wanted to see. Sometimes I'd open my mouth to say something, but Mom was already heading for the car, excited about Larry's superhero movie pick or Emily's favorite ice cream shop across town. One Thursday morning, they were all getting ready to go out again. I stayed in my room. No one came to check on me. No one asked if I wanted to come. Through the door, I heard Emily's voice say, "Good. Now we don't have to pretend to include her." Mom didn't say anything back. Just silence. That silence hurt more than words ever could. Then summer came. It used to be my favorite time of year when I was younger. But not this time. One evening, Mom and Eric called everyone into the living room. They looked super excited. "We have amazing news," Mom said, holding Eric's hand. "We're going on a month-long trip to Europe." Larry and Emily jumped up, cheering like they'd won the lottery. "Can we go to Rome?" Emily shouted. "I want to see the Eiffel Tower." "And Madrid," Larry added. "They have the best soccer stadium in the world." I sat on the couch watching them jump around with excitement. No one looked at me. No one asked if I was happy about the trip. I felt like I was watching a show about a happy family, but I wasn't in it. On the morning of the trip, I got up early and was in my room, checking my packing list. Then I heard something. I looked up and saw Emily standing by my dresser. She had my favorite blue swimsuit in one hand and a pair of scissors in the other. She was slowly cutting through the fabric with a small smile on her face. I just stood there, frozen. I knew she didn't like me. She made that obvious over the past 3 years. But this was something else. This was just plain mean. I jumped forward, trying to grab the scissors from Emily's hand. "Give those to me," I shouted. Emily pulled back quickly, and suddenly we were fighting over the scissors. Even though she was smaller than me, she was pretty strong. As we struggled, she started screaming loudly, "Help! Betty is attacking me!" I heard loud footsteps rushing up the stairs. A moment later, Mom and Eric ran into my room. We were both red in the face and out of breath. My swimsuit, now ruined, was lying on the floor between us. "She tried to hurt me." Emily cried and ran straight into her dad's arms. I was just standing here, and she went crazy. "That's not true," I said quickly. "She was cutting up my swimsuit. I was trying to stop her." Mom didn't even take a good look at the swimsuit on the floor. She looked at me like I had done something terrible. "What is wrong with you, Betty?" she said sharply. "Are you really that jealous of Emily that you'd attack her? Go to your room and stay there until it's time to leave for the airport. Clearly, you can't be trusted around her." They all left the room. I stayed where I was, heart pounding. Through the door, I could hear Mom trying to comfort Emily. "Don't worry, sweetie," she said gently. "We'll go to the mall and get you some new clothes to help you feel better after what happened." I sat on my bed, staring at the torn pieces of my favorite swimsuit. They were going shopping. No one even asked if I needed a new swimsuit for the trip. No one cared that I was telling the truth. That evening, we all met in the hallway with our suitcases. Mom checked her list one more time while Eric packed the bags into the taxi outside. Mom gave me a cold look and said, "I still don't think you deserve this trip after what you did to Emily. But we can't leave you home alone for a whole month, so you're coming. Just try not to cause more trouble." At the airport, everything felt loud and stressful. We walked to the check-in counter, and Mom handed over all our papers. My stomach felt weird, maybe because of how early it was, or because I was nervous, or maybe something else I couldn't explain. "Mom," I said quietly, shifting uncomfortably, "I need to use the bathroom." She didn't even look up as she dug through her huge purse. "Fine, but don't take too long. We can't miss our flight because of you." "Should I bring my bag?" I asked, pointing to my small carry-on. "Just leave it," she snapped. "I'm not letting you walk off with our money and documents." I nodded and started walking toward the bathroom signs, trying to find my way through the crowd. It took longer than I thought. The signs were confusing, and I had to turn around twice before I finally found the right place. After using the restroom and washing my hands, about 15 minutes had passed. But when I got back to the check-in area, my family was gone. At first, I thought maybe I had come to the wrong counter. "Mom," I called out, my voice getting shaky.
Eric.
People looked at me, but none of them were my family. I started running, my shoes hitting the shiny airport floor as I searched all around. Maybe they had already gone through security, but how was I supposed to follow them? Mom had all my documents in her purse. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't have my phone, it was in my bag. I had no money. Mom had it all. I didn't have my ID or a boarding pass. I had nothing. I ran back to the check-in area. Then I went back to the bathrooms. Then I rushed through the food court, hoping to see a familiar face. Time started to feel weird. Everything was moving so fast, but also too slow. My panic got worse by the minute. People kept walking past me, smiling, pulling their suitcases, saying goodbye to family. Their lives were normal. Mine was falling apart. After what felt like hours but was probably just one, I couldn't run anymore. I stood in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by strangers, and burst into tears. Not little quiet ones, but loud, shaking sobs that came from deep inside. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" a kind voice said gently. I looked up and saw a woman in an airport uniform. Her face looked worried. "Where are your parents?" she asked softly. I tried to speak, but my words came out between gasps and tears. They left. I just went to the bathroom, they had all my stuff." Her face changed as she started to understand what had happened. She put her arm around me and led me through a door that said airport staff only. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a small office. People in security uniforms were asking questions and making phone calls. They looked serious. One of them was watching security camera footage, and the more they watched, the more serious they looked. Another person was taking notes, writing down everything in a police report. "It's confirmed," I heard one officer say quietly to another. They checked in, waited until she left, then went straight to the gate and boarded the flight. "They've already taken off." Then one of the officers turned to me, speaking more kindly now. "Is there anyone we can call for you? Any adult, like a grandparent or a relative, who can come get you?" I wiped my eyes with the tissue they gave me. "My dad," I said quietly. "I haven't seen him in 3 years, but I know his name and where he used to work." The staff wrote down what I told them, and I heard them making phone calls in the next room. I sat there, wrapped in a soft airport blanket they gave me, trying not to think about the plane. By now, it was probably flying high over the ocean, carrying my mom and her real family far away from me. "Betty." I looked up when I heard the familiar voice, and I suddenly couldn't breathe. My dad was standing in the doorway. He looked just like I remembered, but also a little different. His hair had more gray in it, and he looked a bit tired. But his eyes, they were exactly the same. The same eyes that used to check under my bed for monsters and shine with joy when I showed him my science fair projects. "Dad," I whispered, my voice breaking. Then I was running to him, and he caught me in his arms, just like when I was 8. We were both crying. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," he kept saying over and over. "I'm so sorry." The car ride to his home felt like a dream. I sat in the front seat, quietly stealing glances at him, scared he might disappear if I looked away. He lived in a different part of the city now, in a big apartment building I'd never seen before. "There's someone I want you to meet," he said as we rode the elevator up to the 8th floor. "My fiancée, Kimberly. She's been my support through all of this." Kimberly was a kind-looking woman with curly red hair. As soon as she saw me, she hugged me tightly like she'd known me forever. "You poor thing," she said gently, leading me to the kitchen. "You must be starving. I'm making you a proper meal right now, no arguments." While Kimberly started cooking, Dad and I sat at the kitchen table. The smell of coffee filled the room. It was the same kind he always drank, black with a little sugar. "Betty," he said at last, holding his coffee mug tightly, "I think it's time you knew the truth about what really happened 3 years ago." He took a deep breath. That day, I came home early from work. I wasn't supposed to be there, but one of my meetings got canceled. His voice was calm, but I noticed his hands shaking just a little. When I walked into the living room, I found your mom with Eric. They weren't just talking. My stomach turned as I realized what he meant. When I confronted them, Eric tried to act tough. We ended up fighting. I'm not proud of it. Your mom tried to get between us, Dad continued. One of us, I'm still not sure who, accidentally pushed her while we were struggling. She fell and hit the coffee table really hard. His voice started to shake. There was blood on her face where she hit it, and her hands were all scraped up. I tried to help her, but before I could, she looked straight at me and said that if I didn't do exactly what she wanted, she'd go to the police. She said she'd tell them I hurt her, that she had bruises to prove it. She said I'd be sent to jail and never get to see you again. He looked at me with pain in his eyes. She gave me her deal, the divorce, the house, money every month, and I had to stay away from you.
Completely away.
She said if I tried to contact you or tell you the truth, she'd go through with her threat. The next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen counter, slowly picking at my breakfast. Kimberly sat down beside me with a serious look on her face. Betty, she said, stirring her coffee, my brother Jack is a family lawyer. He's really good, and I think he can help us with what you're going through. Dad looked up from his newspaper. There was a small spark of hope in his eyes. You think he'll take the case? Are you kidding? Kimberly said, pulling out her phone. When I told him what happened at the airport, he was ready to come over right away. He's just waiting for us to say yes. Everything happened fast after that. Jack showed up not long after. He was tall, with the same red hair and kind eyes as Kimberly, but there was a strong, serious look beneath his calm face. He sat down with us at the dining table and listened carefully while I told him everything that had happened. He took notes and made some calls right there. His voice changed, confident and professional, just like Kimberly said it would when he was in lawyer mode. Within a few hours, he had already sent papers to Child Protective Services and the people in charge of guardianship cases. They took it seriously. Leaving your child at an airport gets people's attention quickly. A couple of days later, Dad said he wanted to take me to see someone special. There's someone who's been missing you like crazy, he said as we drove through familiar streets. Someone who never stopped asking about you. When we pulled up to Grandma Margaret's house, my heart almost stopped. It looked just the same, yellow paint, flower boxes in the windows, and the old porch swing where we used to sit and drink lemonade. Before we could even reach the front door, it flew open. Betty, Grandma cried, and before I knew it, she had me in one of her big warm hugs, the kind that smelled like cinnamon and fresh laundry. Oh, my sweet girl, let me look at you, she said, holding my face gently. We spent the whole afternoon going through old photo albums, eating her famous chocolate chip cookies, and talking about everything we had missed. She even showed me the birthday cards she had written for me, but couldn't send. She kept them safe in a drawer, along with newspaper clippings from my school's honor roll list. Days turned into weeks, and before I knew it, a whole month had passed. Meanwhile, Mom and her perfect, new family were still in Europe, enjoying their vacation. I saw it all on social media. Every day, new pictures showed up. Emily posing by the Eiffel Tower, Larry at the Colosseum, and Mom and Eric having romantic dinners in Rome.
Not one of them reached out to me.
Not one message to ask if I was okay, where I was staying, or if I needed anything. Mom had my phone, my laptop, all of my clothes, everything I owned, except the outfit I was wearing that day at the airport. But she didn't seem to care. I logged into my social media accounts from Dad's computer. I could see they were online all the time, posting photos, liking posts, commenting on their friends' pictures. They could clearly see I was online too. The little green dot next to my name showed that. But still, not even one message. Not even a simple, "Hope you're okay." Then Dad had an idea. He said I should be there waiting when they got back. So, I sat in Mom's living room, my heart racing as I heard a taxi pull up outside. Dad was hidden in her home office, waiting for the right moment. We could hear their voices through the door, laughing and chatting about their amazing trip. Then the key turned in the lock, and they all came in, carrying shopping bags and suitcases. They stopped in their tracks when they saw me sitting there. Well, Mom said, quickly faking a smile. Look who found her way home. Eric laughed and dropped the bags near the stairs.
See?
We told you she'd be fine. That's when Dad stepped out of the office. The look on Mom's face changed in an instant. Her smile disappeared, and her eyes filled with shock, then anger. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" she yelled, backing up and holding onto Eric. "Get out. Right now." But Dad stood strong. His voice was calm but firm. "I'm here to tell you how things are going to be, Ashley. I'm taking Betty with me, for good this time. I've already filed for full custody, and I'm also asking the court to end your parental rights." He held up some papers. "It's already been filed." Mom's face went pale, then turned bright red. "You can't do that," she shouted. "I can, and I already have," Dad said, his voice getting sharper. "And that's not all. You're also facing criminal charges for child endangerment. Leaving a child alone at an airport is serious. You could both go to jail for that." He looked straight at Eric. "You..." Mom's voice was shaking with anger. "You think anyone will believe you after what you did to me? I still have pictures of my injuries. I'll tell everyone you beat me." Dad gave a small smile, but it wasn't a happy one. "Go ahead," he said calmly. "My lawyer is ready for that old story. But here's the truth, Ashley. You never went to the police when it happened. And now, after leaving Betty alone at the airport, no one is going to believe you." He pointed at her. "Everything is on video. Every moment. Walking away from her, boarding the plane, and enjoying your fancy vacation in Europe, while our 16-year-old daughter was left with no phone, no money, no ID. What kind of mother does that?" We. Mom looked at Eric, who looked like he wanted to disappear. "No judge is going to believe your lies now," Dad said firmly. "Not after what you did. Not with the police report, the airport security footage, and your social media posts showing you having the time of your life, without even checking if your daughter was okay. You showed your true self, Ashley. And now you'll have to face the consequences." The trial moved quickly, faster than anyone expected. Jack, Dad's lawyer, said it was because the proof was so strong. The videos from the airport, the report from the police, the social media posts showing them traveling all over Europe while I was left behind, it was all too much to ignore. The judge didn't need much time. She made her decision fast. Mom lost all parental rights. Dad didn't have to pay her any more money. He got full custody of me, which honestly just made it official. I was never going back to that house. Mom and Eric were both given a year of probation and had to pay a fine. The number was so big it made Eric's face turn white. I didn't feel happy watching them sit there, uncomfortable and quiet. I didn't feel angry either. I just felt nothing. It was like watching the ending of a movie about someone else's life. That was 7 months ago. Now, I'm sitting in my new room at Dad and Kimberly's apartment, trying to choose which earrings to wear for their wedding next month. Kimberly asked me to be her bridesmaid, and the dress we picked is hanging on my closet door. It's pale blue, just like the summer sky. I don't know what happened to Mom and her real family after the trial. They moved away somewhere. And honestly, I don't really care. I heard about them from Aunt Carol. Surprisingly, most of Mom's relatives took our side after they found out what really happened. "Being related doesn't excuse what she did to you," Aunt Carol said firmly. "Now, Grandma Margaret comes over every Thursday for dinner. She always brings her famous chocolate chip cookies and funny stories about Dad's childhood. Dad always groans when she tells them, but they make me laugh. Sometimes we look through old photo albums together, but now we're also making new memories. We've started filling new albums with pictures of happy times." After everything calmed down, I transferred to Green Upstate High. There was no way I was going to keep going to school with Larry and Emily. Honestly, it turned out to be the best choice I could have made. My new friends, especially Rebecca and Amy, are true friends. The kind I never had before. They don't know every detail about why I changed schools, but they know enough to understand why I sometimes go quiet when people talk about their moms. Every now and then, I still think about Mom, Eric, Larry, and Emily. But it feels more like remembering characters from an old book I read a long time ago. There's distance now. It doesn't feel real anymore. I blocked all of them on social media. Not because I'm angry, but because I just don't need to see their lives anymore. I'm done being the invisible person in their perfect family pictures. Dad says I'm stronger than he ever was at my age. Maybe that's true. But I think I'm just lucky. Lucky to have him. Lucky to have Kimberly. Lucky to have Grandma Margaret. And lucky to have people in my life who've shown me what real family looks like. Real family stands by you. They fight for you. And they make sure you always know that you're loved. Jennifer, the card isn't working. I can't check out of the hotel. I can't even get home like this. Fix it now, my husband shouted over the phone. When I was in college, I lost both my parents in a car accident. After that, I had to take on several part-time jobs just to afford my tuition. Life was really hard back then. A friend once suggested I try starting a business. Even though things weren't easy, I gave it my full focus, and slowly the company began to grow. Today, I work as the vice president of the company. While most of my friends were getting married and starting families, I also started thinking about my own happiness. I met my husband, and we clicked right away. We got married just 3 months later. But after the wedding, everything changed. My husband quit his job and decided to stay at home. He said he would be a stay-at-home husband. I kept asking him to at least work part-time, but he always refused. One day, I noticed my credit card was gone. It turned out my husband had taken it and gone on a trip with his parents. I tried calling him several times, but he didn't pick up. When he finally answered, he said coldly, "Don't bother me while I'm spending time with my family. Something you clearly don't know how to do." I smiled as I replied. He didn't know it yet, but his luck was about to run out. My name is Jennifer Aniston. I'm 35 years old and currently the vice president at a venture company. Today, I'm financially stable. But there was a time when I couldn't even afford a proper meal. That time started when I lost my parents unexpectedly. They were hit by a car that ran a red light while they were walking across the street. Back then, I thought my life would be normal, going to cafes with friends and studying together. But losing them changed everything. Money became my biggest worry. I had no idea how I'd be able to pay for school. I tried to cover my college expenses through scholarships and part-time jobs, but it still wasn't enough. I had to keep working multiple jobs while going to classes, often with almost no sleep. One day, my classmate Jack Martin made a surprising suggestion. "Jennifer, how about we start a company together?" he said. "If we combine your talent and my business skills, I think we can make it work." Jack was well respected at the university. Starting a business sounded like a big responsibility, but I decided to face the challenge. "I'm scared," I told him. "What if we fail? And how will I even manage the time with all my part-time jobs?" Jack gave me a warm smile, like he really understood how I felt. Then I saw something strong and confident in his eyes. "Don't worry, we'll succeed," he said. His confidence somehow made me feel better. He had a way of making big things seem possible. At that moment, I felt a deep desire to change my life, so I said yes. We started a small company while still in college. In the beginning, getting money to fund our business was hard. Banks kept turning us down, and it was difficult to hire people. Since we were just a small startup, not many talented people were interested. Even after posting job ads, only a few applied, and it was tough to find the right people. But thanks to Jack's calm decisions and smart advice, we slowly built a solid team. Over time, our company began to grow. Jack and I faced many challenges together, and our trust in each other grew stronger. We became close business partners. As the years passed, I reached the age of 35 and realized I had spent most of my time working. I didn't regret it. I had worked hard to pay for my studies and build the company from scratch. I felt proud of what we had achieved. The company was now doing really well. More than 12 years had passed, and both the number of employees and the profits had grown a lot. But as I watched many of my close friends getting married and starting families, I noticed something. My life was only about work. One afternoon, after a lunch meeting, I talked to Jack about it. "Jack, lately I've been thinking," I said. "Many of my friends are getting married. It's made me question how I've been living." Jack looked surprised. "Where's this coming from?" he asked. "I've been focused on work ever since college," I said. "But now I'm starting to wonder, am I missing out on something?" Jack paused for a second, then asked, "Are you thinking about getting married?" After hearing me out, he nodded and said, "If you're not happy with how things are now, maybe it's time to consider a change." I realized that life isn't just about work, and the same goes for marriage. If I wanted a fuller life, I needed to take the first step. Jack's words made me stop and think about where my life was going. Until then, I had only focused on my career. With his encouragement, I decided to try finding a life partner. A friend told me about a safe matchmaking app, so I gave it a try. I started going on dates after work, meeting people at restaurants, bars, and movie theaters. After a few dates, I met Paul Wesley on the fifth one. I was always busy with work and not great at house chores, but Paul was the opposite. He was organized, cooked well, and kept things clean. He understood how packed my schedule was and never got upset when I had to cancel a date. From the beginning, our relationship moved forward smoothly. We both talked about marriage early on, and just 3 months later, we decided to get married. But right after our wedding, Paul surprised me with something I never saw coming. "I've quit my job," he said. "I'll be a stay-at-home husband now." I was shocked. "What are you saying?" I asked, completely confused. He calmly replied, "From now on, I'll take care of all the chores so you can focus on your work." "But why would you decide that without even talking to me first?" I asked, still trying to understand. Paul explained, "You're making money, so there's no problem. If I handle the house, it'll make things easier for you." I didn't know how to respond. It felt like he planned to depend on my income entirely. Even though I earned well, we weren't rich. I told him he should still find a job, even if it was part-time. But no matter what I said, he wouldn't listen. "I'm done working in an office," he said. "If you're earning money, that's enough." I was speechless. His attitude felt selfish, but since we were newly married, I didn't want to start a fight. Things got worse when he started asking me to send money to his parents. "Families should support each other," he said. "I'm a stay-at-home husband now, so Jennifer, I'm counting on you." I wouldn't have minded helping his parents if Paul was also earning, but now it just felt unfair. Another reason I didn't want to help was because of how his parents treated me. They often said rude things, acting like I was forcing Paul to do all the housework. One day, we were having a meal with them and they started their usual complaints. His mother put down her chopsticks and said, "Jennifer, you're making Paul do all the chores."
Poor thing.
"Do you really think that's fair?" Then his father added, "Paul told us you're not good at housework. As his wife, shouldn't you try harder to get better at it?" Their words made me feel humiliated and angry. I didn't know what Paul had told his parents, but it was obvious they thought I was the bad one. That's not true. Paul was the one who chose to be a stay-at-home husband, I said. But Paul leaned over and whispered,
"Calm down.
Just support me for now and say sorry. I'll explain everything to them later." Even though he said that, I felt upset. He didn't stand up for me when I needed him. I kept asking him afterward if he had cleared up the misunderstanding, but he always avoided the topic. "I haven't had the chance to talk to them," he'd say. I felt rejected by his family and unsupported by my own husband. I started to feel hopeless about our marriage and began thinking about divorce. But then something unexpected happened. I had been having stomach pain for a while, so I went to the hospital. That's when I found out I was pregnant. I felt shocked but happy and rushed home to tell Paul. "Paul, I'm pregnant," I said with a smile. "Oh, really? That's great. I'm looking forward to it," he replied calmly, almost too calmly. His reaction confused me. There was no excitement, no hugs, nothing. He just sat down on the couch and turned on the TV like I hadn't said anything important. The happiness I felt disappeared in seconds. I felt heartbroken and disappointed. I quietly went to my room, tears rolling down my face. His cold reaction made me wonder, had the love between us disappeared? Even with a baby on the way, he didn't seem happy. I started thinking seriously about divorce. But now I was pregnant. Could I really raise a child on my own? Maybe things would change after the baby arrived. Maybe Paul, and even his parents, would act differently. Hanging on to that tiny bit of hope, I decided to stay for now. A few weeks later, I noticed a big charge on my credit card bill. I checked my wallet and the card was gone. Had I lost it? Or had someone stolen it? Or maybe it was used by a scammer. Worried, I went to Paul. "Hey, there's a big charge on my credit card. I didn't make it. Do you think I should call the card company? I asked. To my shock, he replied, I used it. It's not fraud, so don't cancel the card. I was speechless. After quitting his job and spending all his savings, he had secretly taken my card and used it without telling me, even though I was already giving him money for groceries and bills. Why would you take my card without asking? And what did you spend so much money on? I asked. It's my right to buy what I want. I just need some money I can use freely, he said coldly. I looked at him and said, then get a job and buy things with your own money. I snapped back at him, but this was a conversation we had had many times before. No matter how much I begged or got upset, my husband had no plans to get a job. The man I once believed would help support our home now barely cooked and relied on takeout. He also didn't keep the house clean. When I complained about it, he got angry. You're the one making the money, so what's the problem? He yelled. I'm your husband, and I do housework. As a stay-at-home husband, I deserve at least that much. Then he stormed out, saying he was going to his parents' house. I felt hurt and angry. Families are supposed to support each other, but now I was pregnant and starting to doubt if he really cared about our future. I had worked so hard to build this life and career. Just because we were married didn't mean he could spend large amounts of money without even asking me. I kept taking deep breaths to stop myself from crying or yelling. Later that night, he suddenly came back with his parents. The door slammed open, and I jumped up, startled. As soon as they entered, his parents started shouting at me. This is all your fault, they said. Paul has been so stressed doing the housework because you force it on him. His mother added, as a woman, you should be cooking, cleaning, and doing the laundry. Don't use your job as an excuse to avoid your duties. Their words made my blood boil. I was pregnant and not feeling well, and now I was being blamed for everything. I had already made up my mind to get a divorce, and their yelling pushed me over the edge. I shouted back, my voice full of anger. Enough. Don't act like you know everything when you clearly don't. You'll regret talking to me this way. They looked shocked by how cold and serious I sounded. But I realized there was no point arguing anymore. My husband had clearly lied to them about the situation, and even when I tried to explain that he wasn't working or helping, they didn't believe me. So I stayed quiet. Still, deep down, I knew they would regret this one day. Then suddenly, my mother-in-law pulled some papers out of her bag and slammed them on the dining table. If you won't change your behavior, we're demanding a divorce. Sign this and be done with it, she said. I stared at the papers in shock. I never thought they'd be the ones to bring it up, especially like this. In fact, I had been planning to ask for a divorce myself. Thinking this could turn into a legal fight, I picked up the pen. My hands were shaking so much, I could barely hold it. But I signed the papers, swallowing my pain and anger. I forced myself to sign the papers and said, there, it's done. With that, my husband and his parents left. Then I realized I forgot to ask for my credit card back. A deep sadness hit me. Right after that, a sharp pain shot through my stomach. It was worse than anything I'd ever felt. I collapsed to the floor. My breathing became fast, and sweat started pouring down my face and body. My vision turned blurry, and the pain was so strong I couldn't think clearly. I tried to say, "What's happening?" but the words barely came out. With every breath, the pain got worse. I couldn't control my body. I dragged myself across the floor, trying to reach my phone. My fingers were shaking as I pulled myself forward, little by little, using all the strength I had left. The burning pain made me feel like I was about to pass out. I finally managed to call emergency services. In a weak, trembling voice, I said, "Help, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm pregnant." I gave them my address and ended the call. The pain didn't stop. My vision got darker, and I collapsed again, lying there on the floor, waiting for help. "Please protect my baby," I whispered in my mind, praying hard. Even in that pain, I kept telling myself to stay strong for my child. I was rushed to the hospital. The doctors told me I was at risk of early labor. They said it was because of too much stress and working too hard. I was admitted to the hospital right away. The fear for my baby was so overwhelming that I must have passed out after arriving. I was in a coma for 3 days. When I finally woke up, I was in a quiet hospital room. The pain had gone down and my body felt a little better. I slowly became aware of my surroundings. The room was calm, and soft sunlight came through the window. I gently touched my belly and felt that my baby was still there. I let out a deep breath, thankful for that moment of peace. Slowly, the memories came back, the awful pain, the ambulance ride, and how scared I was of blacking out. I was grateful to be alive and safe. Then I thought about my husband. I needed to contact him. I picked up my phone and called him. He didn't answer. I remembered giving his number to the ambulance staff, but I hadn't heard from him since. I called again. Still no reply. I tried several more times. Finally, on the 5th try, he answered, but his voice sounded odd, and the signal wasn't clear. "What do you want at this hour?" he asked. "I was rushed to the hospital," I said. "I had signs of early labor. It happened after you and your parents left. Can you please bring me some of my things?" His reply stunned me. "That sounds tough, but I'm overseas right now, so I can't help," he said. "Overseas?" I asked, shocked. "I'm enjoying a vacation in Hawaii. Don't bother me while I'm spending time with my parents. I'm just doing my duty as a son, something you clearly don't understand," he added. I was speechless. How could someone with no job afford a trip abroad? Since he kept talking about duty, I knew he must have used someone else's money, probably mine. My voice shaking, I ended the call with a quiet, "Got it." After that, I went straight to the hospital's gift shop. I bought a small box, an envelope, and made a phone call to a number I had saved. The next day, my husband called, clearly panicking. "The card isn't working. I can't check out of the hotel. I can't even get home like this. Fix this now," he shouted. "I canceled the card," I said calmly, though I was boiling inside. "What? I can't pay for anything. What are you going to do about it?" he cried. "That's your problem," I replied firmly. "This isn't just my problem. I'm still your husband," he yelled. I couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" he asked, confused. "Our marriage is almost over. The divorce papers are already being processed," I told him.
His voice changed.
He sounded like he was about to cry. "Please, just let me use the card one more time, so I can get home. I'm begging you." But I felt nothing. "Figure it out yourself. You're no longer my concern," I said coldly and hung up. 4 days later, my friend Jack, who is also the company's president, came to visit me at the hospital. "Don't worry about work. Just focus on getting better," he said gently. I smiled and replied, "This is the first time I've done absolutely nothing." But before I could say anything else, the hospital door suddenly flew open. My ex-husband and his parents had just returned from their overseas trip and stormed into the room. As soon as he saw me, my ex-husband shouted, "What have you done?" "I had to borrow money from a friend just to get back." His mother screamed, "This is unbelievable. How could you treat us like this?" His father yelled too. Our son's well-planned trip was completely ruined. They were all furious. Jack and some people nearby watched the scene unfold. Still, I stayed calm. "He paid for the whole trip using my credit card, without my permission," I said clearly. The mood in the room suddenly changed. My in-laws looked at each other, shocked and confused. Their expressions looked like they had just been hit by lightning. I continued, "Right after we got married, he quit his job and said he'd be a stay-at-home husband. But he's hardly done anything around the house since." My words echoed through the room. It was quiet now, no one said a thing. I could see the worry on my in-laws' faces.
"What?
"Paul isn't working? That can't be true. He told us he had a job," my mother-in-law said, her voice shaking. She looked clearly upset and confused. My father-in-law stared at me too, shocked and disappointed. "The truth is, he hasn't been working at all. I've been the one paying for everything," I told them. Hearing this, they turned to Paul with shocked and hurt expressions. It was clear they felt betrayed. My mother-in-law pressed her lips tightly, and my father-in-law clenched his fists in anger. Paul couldn't even look at them. He looked down, avoiding their eyes. Then Jack spoke up. Mr. and Mrs. Wesley, I need to speak with you. I'm the CEO of the company where Jennifer works. Through our talks, I've learned that Paul has been unemployed, and it's Jennifer who's been taking care of all the expenses. My in-laws looked stunned. Jack calmly handed them his business card and showed them the company's website. Their hands shook as they looked at it, and it was clear they couldn't deny the truth anymore. Their faces showed both shock and confusion. Jack continued, Our company is currently working on a major project with Mr. Wesley's workplace. But after this, we don't want to keep working with unreliable partners. This can't be happening. What's going to happen to the project? My father-in-law asked, barely able to speak. Paul, how are you going to explain all of this? He added, his face full of defeat. My mother-in-law buried her face in her hands. How did things turn out like this? She whispered. They both looked pale and heartbroken. Just then, Paul grabbed my hand tightly. Jennifer, please help me. I want to fix this, he said with tears in his eyes. His hand was shaking, and he looked truly scared. After everything he had done, ignoring me, spending my money, and lying, I wasn't surprised to see him begging now. It's too late, I said firmly. I can't forget what you did. This is the end. I pulled my hand away with strength. Please, he begged again, falling to his knees in front of me. At that moment, Jack pulled out some documents. Can you still ask for help after seeing this? He said. The papers showed an investigation Jack had done quietly. They explained how Paul had lied about sending money to his parents, but was keeping it for himself, and how he had carelessly spent my hard-earned income. I can't let anyone hurt an important business partner, Jack said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were serious. I've already spoken to our lawyer. You should be ready to pay for what you've done, he told the three of them with a polite but firm smile. As I lay in my hospital bed, I felt thankful and relieved for everything Jack had done for me. I looked out the window, feeling peaceful for the first time in a long while. After that day, all the stress I had been carrying seemed to fade. I slowly recovered from the danger of early labor and later gave birth to a healthy baby. My heart was full, happy about my baby's arrival, but also tired from the delivery. Jack and my coworkers even came to visit and celebrate. After I left the hospital, I moved into a new apartment that Jack had helped arrange. Thanks to him, we chose a place where my ex-husband and his family would never be able to find us. The new home was in a quiet area, away from the noise of the city. It was surrounded by green trees and peaceful silence. It was the perfect place to relax, take slow walks, and enjoy the calm that nature brings. Here, my baby and I started a new chapter in life. I felt a mix of hope and nervousness, but the support from kind people around me helped ease those worries. A few weeks have passed since I gave birth. I'm on maternity leave now, spending calm, slow days with my newborn. This time is so special to me. Jack visits often, bringing things we need and always offering kind words. One day, he arrived again with more supplies. When he saw us, he asked gently, Jennifer, how are you feeling? The baby looks healthy, and that's the most important thing. Thank you, Jack, I said with a smile. We've made it through because of your support. I invited him inside. After laying the baby in the crib, I made him a warm cup of coffee. He looked a little serious as he sat down. There's something important I need to talk to you about, he said. It's about your ex-husband and his parents. Is something wrong? I asked, concerned. I asked Jack what was going on. He told me he had been quietly keeping track of my ex-husband and his family to make sure we stayed safe. They sold their house to pay the compensation and are now living in an old, run-down apartment, he said. Your ex-father-in-law lost his job, and now all three of them are working day and night. Jack placed some papers on the living room table and explained, Your ex-husband is doing hard labor at a construction site he's not used to. Since he was lazy even with housework, he keeps getting scolded at work and is struggling to keep up. He continued, Your ex-mother-in-law works 2 jobs. She's a cashier at a supermarket during the day and works in a sandwich factory at night. She's exhausted and her back hurts, but she can't afford to rest or get treatment. As for your ex-father-in-law, Jack added, He's been looking for a better job, but his age and lack of experience make it difficult. So now he works as a cashier during the day and a janitor at night. Hearing all this, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me felt a little sorry for them, but that feeling didn't last long. In the end, I knew they were only facing the results of their own actions. Staying calm, I said, "This is what happens when you betray others." Jack nodded and replied, "You're right. Now you're free. Let's focus on your happiness and the baby's future." I agreed completely. I knew now that my life moving forward would be about my child and myself. The pain and struggles from before were over. I was ready to start fresh. Later, with the help of my lawyer, I asked my ex-husband and his parents to pay alimony and return the money they had taken without asking. They said they couldn't pay, but I didn't care about their excuses anymore. I stood strong for my future and my child's. "I'm done thinking about marriage," I said with a smile. "From now on, I'll live a happy life with my baby." Jack smiled and said, "That's the right choice. You're strong, and you deserve every bit of happiness coming your way." With his kind words and support, I felt hopeful. From now on, my focus is on building a joyful life with my child. This new beginning is a big and exciting step forward for both of us. The day my parents' will was read started off cold but sunny. Light came through the big wooden windows of Nicholas and Associates' law office. I sat quietly in a corner, watching my brother Donald walk around the room in his fancy suit, already acting like he owned everything. And honestly, he probably did. "Miss Laura Benandi," the lawyer said, pulling me out of my thoughts. "Are you ready to begin?" I nodded and held tightly onto the arms of my leather chair. I was 34, and today I would find out what my parents really thought of me. Though deep down I already knew. They had compared me to Donald my whole life, always making me feel like I wasn't good enough. Mr. Nicholas, the lawyer, adjusted his glasses and started reading. "To our son Jason," he said, "for his strong commitment to the family business and for carrying on the Benani name." Then he listed everything Donald was getting. I couldn't believe it. The family house in Pennsylvania. Our summer home in the Erie. Most of the shares in Benanti Industries. A huge investment portfolio worth millions. Donald's smile grew bigger with each item. Then it was my turn. "To our daughter, Laura," Mr. Nicholas paused and flipped through some papers. "We leave the painting titled Autumn Twilight, which is currently hanging in the study at our main home." The room went quiet. Donald didn't even bother hiding his laughter. "A painting?" I asked softly. "That's it? Just a painting?" "It was your mother's favorite," Mr. Nicholas said gently, clearly uncomfortable with how unfair everything looked. Donald came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. He squeezed it just enough to make it hurt. "Don't worry, sis," he said with a smirk. "I'll get you a job in the company. Maybe sorting mail." I pushed his hand off and stood up. The Benani family fortune, which took 3 generations to build, now fully belonged to my brother. And all I got was a single painting, one my mother had bought years ago from a small gallery. I had always thought the painting was pretty. It showed a forest at sunset, with strange shapes hidden among the trees. But still, it didn't feel like a fair gift. "Is that all?" I asked Mr. Nicholas. He gave me a kind look and nodded. "The painting must be picked up within 8 days," he said. I left the office without saying anything else, ignoring Jason calling out behind me. The drive to my parents' house, now Jason's house, felt strange. The guards at the gate gave me suspicious looks, but let me in after I explained I was there for the painting. Inside, the housekeeper Nancy met me with tears in her eyes. "Oh, Miss Laura," she whispered, giving me a tight hug. "What they did to you wasn't right." I hugged her back, holding back my own tears. Nancy had been more like a mother to me than my actual mom sometimes. She helped me take the painting off the wall in the study and wrapped it gently in a blanket. "Your mother used to stare at this for hours," Nancy said softly, "especially in the last few months. She used to talk about numbers and patterns. We thought she was just confused because of her illness." I looked closely at the painting in the dim light of the study. The shapes hidden in the trees seemed to move and change, forming patterns I had never noticed before. Numbers? I asked. Nancy nodded. She gently touched the shapes with her fingers. She used to trace these again and again. Mr. Benandi would get so angry when she did it. That night, back at my small apartment across town, I hung the painting on my living room wall. It really was beautiful, in its own way. The forest was painted with so much detail. Every leaf and branch looked perfect. But the strange shapes didn't fit in with the rest of the scene. They felt, on purpose, like they were trying to say something. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch, staring at the painting. This was my mother's last gift to me. Was it just a cruel joke to show I wasn't good enough compared to Jason? Or was there something more to it? My phone buzzed, Jason calling again. I ignored it just like I had the last 6 times. He probably wanted to brag or offer me that mailroom job again. Instead, I opened my laptop and started looking up the painting, Autumn Twilight, by someone named Dennis Hope. There were no big shows, no records of it being sold, and barely anything about the artist online. The gallery where my mother bought it had shut down years ago. It was like the painting had come from nowhere. A text popped up from Jason.
Don't be bitter, sis.
Come work for me. It's what Mom and Dad would have wanted. I always felt like my parents wanted me to be more like Jason. They wanted me to care about money, profits, and big business stuff. But I chose something different. I followed my love for art history and restoring old artwork. I knew they were disappointed in me, and now, through their will, they had made their feelings very clear. Still, something about the painting wouldn't let me look away. The shapes in it reminded me of something I learned in my art restoration classes. It was called steganography, a way of hiding messages in plain sight. I got up and took a closer look at the painting. The shapes were painted in slightly different colors, just enough to be hidden unless you were really looking. And they seemed to make some kind of pattern. Suddenly, a knock on the door made me jump. It was past midnight. Who would be here at this hour? I looked through the peephole and saw Jason. His usually neat hair was messy. "Laura," he said, "open up. We need to talk about the painting." I stayed quiet and watched him from behind the door. He never cared about art before, so why was he here now in the middle of the night, asking about the painting he had laughed at earlier? "Laura, please," he said again. His voice now sounded nervous, almost scared. "Mom left instructions about the painting. You need to give it back." Instructions? My heart started beating fast. Maybe I wasn't just imagining things. Maybe those shapes really were hiding something. "Go away, Jason," I said loudly through the door. "The painting is mine. It's all I got, remember?" "You don't understand," he said sharply. "That painting isn't what you think it is. Give it to me now, and I'll pay you $7 million. $7 million? For a painting he called worthless just hours ago? I stepped back from the door, my thoughts spinning. Jason was a lot of things, but he wasn't the kind of person to waste money. If he was offering that much, then the painting had to be worth even more. Then I heard him messing with something, keys. Did he still have my spare key from last year, when I was sick? I panicked. I grabbed the painting off the wall and rushed to my bedroom, locking the door just as I heard the front door open. "Laura?" Jason shouted. "Where are you? Where's the painting?" I held the painting tightly, my hands shaking. In the dim light of my room, the strange shapes on the canvas seemed to glow. And then I saw something I hadn't noticed before, a pattern. The shapes weren't random. They formed numbers, hidden so cleverly in the trees that no one would ever see them unless they knew where to look. "Laura." Jason's voice was getting closer. "Think about what you're doing. That painting is worth more than you can imagine." I turned the painting over and looked at the back. The canvas was fixed neatly, like a professional job, but something didn't seem right. There was a small gap in the frame, something that shouldn't be there. Just then, the handle on my bedroom door shook.
"Laura."
"Open this door right now," Jason shouted. With shaking hands, I picked at the gap in the frame. A small piece of paper fell out. It was covered in my mother's neat handwriting. I read the first line, and my breath caught in my throat. "My dearest Laura, if you're reading this, then you've found what I always knew you would. You notice things that others don't. You ask questions others are too afraid to ask. Now, my sweet girl, you're about to learn why your father and brother have always feared you. Jason was still banging on the door, but I barely noticed. I was focused on the letter, my hands shaking as I read each line. Every word revealed a shocking truth. The numbers in the painting weren't just random shapes, they were coordinates, bank account numbers, and passwords. Together, they would expose something huge. Something that could destroy Benani Industries completely. And Jason, who was now yelling and pounding outside my door, had no clue that his perfect little world was about to fall apart. I don't know how long I sat on the floor, reading and rereading my mother's letter. My hands shook as I took in every carefully written word. The numbers in the painting, when used with the codes I've included here, the letter said, will lead you to the truth about Benani Industries. Your father and brother built their company by stealing ideas, patents, and designs from brilliant people who trusted them. I was one of those people, Laura. And you were always meant to carry on my real work. A loud crash from the living room snapped me out of it. Jason must have stopped asking nicely. He'd broken in. I'm calling the police. I shouted, already dialing 911. Go ahead. Jason yelled back. I'll tell them you stole company property. That painting belongs to Benani Industries. But now I knew the truth. My mother had been a genius, an inventor in her own right. She had hidden her life's work inside the painting, right under their noses. It wasn't just art. It was a map to a secret place full of proof. The coordinates will take you to my private lab, the letter continued. Everything you need is there. But be careful, Laura. Your father and brother will do anything to keep their secrets hidden. I heard Jason's footsteps moving away, followed by the sound of the front door slamming shut. I took a deep breath and came out of my bedroom. My apartment was a complete mess. Jason had clearly searched every corner trying to find the painting. But I didn't care about the mess. I had more important things to do. First, I took pictures of the painting from every angle, making sure I captured all the geometric shapes. Then, I carefully wrote down the coordinates for my mother's letter. According to her instructions, I had to place the shapes in a certain order to find the full set of access codes. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Nancy, our old housekeeper. Miss Laura, men are at the house taking all your mother's things. They're searching the study. Please be careful. They were trying to destroy the proof. I had to act fast. The coordinates led to a place in the Springfield, about 4 hours away from the city. In her letter, my mother said she bought the property using her maiden name so that my father and Jason wouldn't know about it. The lab is underground, she wrote. The entrance looks like an old storm shelter, but it has advanced security. Use the first set of numbers from the painting to open it. I packed quickly my laptop, the painting wrapped carefully in blankets, some clothes, and the letter. As I walked toward my car, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street with the engine running. Jason wasn't done following me. The drive to the Springfield was tense. The SUV followed me for the first hour, always staying the same distance behind. I took side roads and made turns through quiet areas, trying to lose them. Finally, near the Delaware border, I managed to shake them off. By the time I reached the spot marked by the coordinates, the sun was just starting to rise. At first, the place looked like no one had lived there for years. Just a weedy field, an old farmhouse falling apart, and broken fences. But as I walked around, I noticed something. The shapes in the painting weren't just random designs. They were a map. The trees, rocks, and even the shadows on the ground matched the painting perfectly. The storm cellar was right where the shapes had pointed. It looked rusty and forgotten, like it hadn't been opened in ages. But when I entered the first code into a hidden keypad beside the door, the heavy doors opened smoothly, revealing a staircase that went underground. As I walked down, motion sensor lights turned on one by one. The air grew cooler with each step. I could hear the soft sound of air systems running in the background. At the bottom, another keypad waited for me. This time, I had to use the second set of numbers from the painting. When the lab lights turned on, I froze in amazement. It felt like I had stepped into another world. The walls were bright white, the machines were high-tech, and rows of computers gave off a soft hum. But what caught my attention the most was a wall full of patents and inventions. I moved closer. There were dozens of designs and ideas I recognized from Benani Industries. But there was one big difference. Each one had my mother's signature on it. "Oh my God," I whispered, staring in shock. These weren't just similar to the company's products. They were the originals. My mother hadn't just watched from the sidelines. She had been the real genius behind the entire company. Then, a voice behind me made my heart stop. "Impressive, isn't it?" I spun around and couldn't believe my eyes. My father stood in the doorway, looking just like he had the day he supposedly died. And next to him, Jason, wearing a smug smile. "Did you really think your mother was the only one who knew about this place?" my father said, stepping into the lab. "I'll admit, hiding the map in the painting was smart. We've been searching for this lab for months." I took a step back, holding my mother's letter tight. "You're supposed to be dead." He smiled, but his eyes were cold. "Sometimes, the best way to stay hidden is to make people think you're gone. Your mother's death was real. But mine? Let's just say it served its purpose." It hit me then, the will reading, the painting, all of it had been a trap. "You wanted me to find this place," I said slowly. "We needed you to lead us here," Jason replied, moving in front of the only exit. "Mom changed all the security settings before she passed. We couldn't get in without the codes." "And now," my father added, walking toward me, "you're going to help us erase everything. We'll destroy all of your mother's work, and Benani Industries will stay safe." But they had made one big mistake. While they talked, I had been moving closer to my mother's main computer. Her letter had mentioned something, an emergency action called the Clarity Protocol. It only needed one special number code to turn it on. "Actually," I said, reaching behind me to type in the code, "I don't think I'll be helping you." Suddenly, the lab lights turned red, and a robotic voice filled the room. "Clarity Protocol activated. Sending evidence to all major news networks and government agencies. Deletion is not possible." My father's face twisted with anger. "What have you done?" I stared back, my voice calm. "Mom called it her insurance policy." I spoke firmly, feeling braver with every word. "All the proof in this lab, patents, stolen ideas, fake documents, has just been sent to hundreds of safe places. Benani Industries is about to face some very serious questions." Jason rushed toward me, but it was too late. Loud alarms started going off. The lab's security system activated, and every door locked shut. We were trapped inside, with the truth that would ruin them. "She knew," I said, looking at their shocked faces. "She knew you would try to hide her work, just like you tried to erase her ideas. So, she made sure the truth would come out no matter what." Through the small windows, I saw flashing police lights getting closer. The lab system must have contacted the police. My father and Jason looked at each other, fear in their eyes, as the sirens grew louder. Near the door, the painting still sat wrapped in blankets. Those shapes that seemed useless at first had led me straight to the truth. My mother's last gift wasn't just a painting. It was justice. And as I watched my father and brother slowly realize that their world was falling apart, I smiled. Because this was just the beginning. Now, the real story behind Benani Industries was going to be told. And this time, no one could hide the truth. The next 4 days felt like a dream. Police interviews, news stories, and a storm of chaos took over everything. From my hotel room, I watched it all unfold on TV. Benani Industries stock dropped fast. Years of lies were being pulled apart for everyone to see. Benani Industries CEO found alive, arrested for fraud. Company built on stolen ideas, the truth finally revealed. Mother's revenge, the real mind behind Benani Tech. The headlines were everywhere. My phone kept ringing, reporters, lawyers, former employees. Everyone wanted to talk to me. But I only cared about one call. It was from Nancy, our old housekeeper. Her voice was full of emotion. "Your mother knew this day would come," she said softly. "That's why she made me promise to give you something after the truth was finally out." An hour later, I sat in Nancy's small living room, holding another letter from my mother. This one wasn't about instructions or secret codes. It was a letter telling her story. "My dearest Laura," it began. Now that you know the truth about Benanti Industries, it's time you learn the truth about yourself. You were never less than your brother. You were always meant for something greater. As I read the letter, everything in my life started to make more sense. My mother hadn't been just another victim of my father's lies. She had been planning all along, preparing me for this very moment. Those art history classes I had taken, they weren't a waste of time like my father had always said. They had trained me to notice patterns and find hidden messages. My work in restoring old paintings, it had taught me to be patient, to pay attention to every detail, and to bring truth back from pieces. Every time your father kept you away from the company, she wrote, every time he chose Jason over you, he was unknowingly helping me. He was shaping you into the person who could one day bring the truth to light. While Jason was learning to hide the lies, you were learning how to uncover them. A knock at the door pulled me out of the letter. A woman in a sharp-looking suit stood there, holding a briefcase. "Miss Benanti," she said politely. "I'm Susan Boyle from the SEC. We need to talk about your mother's patents." The next few hours felt like a whirlwind. I quickly learned just how much my mother had done in secret. She hadn't only saved proof of the stolen work, she had continued creating new inventions, working quietly in her underground lab. The coordinates in the painting hadn't just led to old secrets. They had led to the future. She filed all of these patents under a trust, Susan explained as she spread the documents on Nancy's small coffee table. A trust that names you as the only person in charge. My hands shook as I looked over the papers. Dozens of patents, all legally protected. And now, all of them belonged to me. These weren't just the old ideas my father had stolen. Some of them were new, years ahead of anything being made today. Benanti Industries doesn't just owe you for what they stole, Susan said. They've built their entire company using your mother's inventions. They can't keep operating without them. I stared at her, trying to understand what all of this meant. "So, what happens now?" I asked quietly. I was starting to understand everything now. "It means, Miss Benanti," Susan said, "you now control the company that once pushed you aside." While my father and Jason sat in jail, waiting for their trial, I walked into the headquarters of Benanti Industries the next morning, not as the forgotten daughter, but as the new owner. The board of directors, desperate to save the company from falling apart, had no choice but to agree to my terms. Standing in what used to be my father's office, I found another surprise. Behind the large painting on the wall, there was a hidden safe. The code? It was the last set of numbers for my mother's painting. Inside the safe was a personal diary. It listed every invention my father had stolen and every person he had betrayed. But even more important, it named others, people like my mother, who had been cheated out of credit for their work. 1 month later, I stood on a stage at a press conference. The room was full of reporters. Benanti Industries was built on stolen dreams, I said. But today we begin making things right. I announced the start of a new foundation that would repay every inventor who had been wronged by the old leadership. But I didn't stop there. We're turning this company into what it should have always been, a place where smart, creative people are supported, not used. The painting that started everything now hangs in my new office. It reminds me that the most valuable things can sometimes be hidden in plain sight. The shapes that once hid my mother's secrets now mean something new. The design of a better future, one built on truth, not lies. Jason wrote to me from prison. Sometimes he begged for help, and other times he made threats. I sent him one photo in return. The painting, now hanging where our father's portrait used to be. He would understand exactly what that meant. His world of lies was finished. My father never wrote or said a word, but it didn't matter. The truth he had tried so hard to hide had become the one thing everyone now remembered. The great Gary Benanti was no longer seen as a brilliant businessman. He was remembered as a thief who stole his own wife's work. Late one evening, just as I was getting ready to leave the office, Nancy came in with one final letter from my mother. It had been timed to arrive exactly 1 month after the company's rebirth. "My darling Laura," it read, "if you're reading this, you've done more than just uncover the truth. You've started to rebuild from the ruins of lies. I never wanted you to inherit a broken empire. I wanted you to have the chance to build something honest, something that matched your heart. I gently touched her handwriting, feeling closer to her than ever before. That painting, once thought to be worthless, had turned out to be the key to everything. More than that, it was my mother's way of showing me I had received something far more valuable than money or power. I had inherited her dream, a dream to make the world better. Now, 3 years later, Benani Industries no longer exists. We renamed it Aurora Innovations, and it looks nothing like the company it used to be. We're now known not just for new technology, but for running the business with honesty and fairness. Our foundation has helped many inventors take back credit for their stolen work. And our startup program has helped launch many new careers. The painting still hangs in my office. Its strange shapes are now a comforting sight. Sometimes late at night, I feel like they shift just a little, like my mother is still with me, showing me new clues and guiding me toward new truths. But the biggest truth was always right there, hidden in plain sight. Success built on lies will always fall apart. But success built on truth and fairness will last. Jason got out of prison last week. He sent me a message asking to meet, wanting to talk about rebuilding our family. I haven't replied. Some patterns I've learned are better left the way they are. Instead, I focus on what's ahead. Now, the company hosts an annual innovation fair where young inventors can share their ideas without fear of being cheated. Last year's winner was a young woman whose story reminded me of my mother, smart, overlooked, but strong and full of vision. As I gave her the award, I saw my mother's painting reflected in the glass trophy. The shapes seemed to shine, almost like they were dancing. It reminded me that the most meaningful gifts are not the ones we can hold, they are the ones that change us from the inside. That old painting gave me something priceless. The truth about my past, the power to shape my future, and the chance to protect others like my mother. And I know, without a doubt, that would make her prouder than any fortune ever could. My name is Julie, and this is the story of my life. When I was 17, my parents left me at a train station. It wasn't an accident. They didn't forget me. They did it on purpose. They said it was to teach me a lesson. They wanted to see how long it would take me to get home on my own. But I never went back. Now, 21 years later, they found me again, but not because they missed me. Not because they felt sorry for what they did. They came back because they wanted something. They needed money. They wanted support. They wanted control. When I refused to give them anything, they didn't stop. They didn't feel guilty. Instead, they turned my own family against me. They told lies. They tried to ruin everything I had worked so hard to build. I still remember that day clearly. It was July, and the heat made my skin sticky as I leaned against the car window, half asleep. My headphones were on, blocking out the sound of the road. My parents, Eric and Sophia, sat in the front seats. They were arguing again as usual. I didn't even try to listen anymore. I was used to them always fighting. The road in front of us seemed to go on forever, long, empty backroads in Mississippi. We were just returning from a weekend visit to see my older sister, Megan, at her college. The whole trip felt like every other one. Megan acted like everything was fine. Mom made little comments about how I should try to be more like her. Dad ignored me unless he was barking an order. I had learned not to expect anything different from them. Suddenly, the car slowed down. I opened my eyes a little and saw a small train station by the highway. It looked really old, almost forgotten, with rusty signs and faded paint. Dad pulled into the parking lot and stopped near a couple of vending machines. Without even looking at me, he said, "Go get me a soda." I pulled my headphones down, confused.
What?
I asked. Mom turned around and gave me a fake smile, the kind that never touched her eyes. "Get your father a drink, honey. And grab me a bottle of water, too." I sighed and got out of the car. The hot air hit me like a wave as soon as I stepped onto the cracked pavement. I didn't even try to argue. It never helped anyway. The vending machines stood next to the station entrance. Their colors were faded, and parts were peeling because of the sun. I pulled out a wrinkled $7 bill from my pocket and fed it into the machine. I pressed the buttons for their drinks. The machine made slow, creaky sounds before finally dropping out a warm soda and a bottle of water. I picked them up and turned around, expecting to see the car waiting where I left it. But it was gone. The parking lot was completely empty. For a moment, my brain didn't understand what I was seeing. Maybe they just parked somewhere else, I thought. Maybe they were still around, just out of view. I took a few steps forward, my heart starting to race, as I realized they had left me. I looked around at the empty parking lot. Every spot was clear. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "Let's see how long it takes you to get home. Consider this a lesson in problem solving." My stomach dropped. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a joke. They had really left me behind. My hands shook as I quickly pressed the call button. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. And again. But every time, all I heard was that cold, empty beep. I stood there, holding the soda so tight that the bottle started to crackle under my grip. My heart was beating so loudly I couldn't hear anything else, not even the sound of a train in the distance. They weren't coming back. I should have been shocked. I should have been heartbroken. But instead, I felt strangely calm. This wasn't the first time they had done something like this. When I was 14, they locked me outside during a storm because I forgot to take out the trash. At 15, they made me walk 7 miles home in the rain because I missed the bus. This was just another one of their lessons, their cruel way of showing me that I didn't matter. I looked around the station. A few people were walking by, not noticing the 17-year-old girl standing there alone with just a wallet and growing anger. I decided I wouldn't wait for them. I wouldn't play their game. I checked my pocket, $200 for my summer job. Not a lot, but maybe enough. I walked up to the ticket counter. The old man behind it barely looked up. "Where's the nearest bus station?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He pointed down the road. "A couple miles that way." I nodded and started walking. My phone buzzed again, another message from Mom. "Don't you dare call your aunt. Your father says you need to figure this out on your own." I blocked her number. Then I did exactly what they told me not to do. I called my aunt. The phone rang twice before I heard a voice I hadn't heard in a while. "Julie?" I swallowed hard. "Helen, can you help me?" I tried to sound strong, but inside, I was falling apart.
Her voice changed.
She sounded worried. "Where are you?" I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "I'm at a train station," I whispered. "They left me, Helen. They just drove away." There was a short silence. Then she gasped. "Stay right there, sweetheart. I'm coming to get you." That happened 21 years ago. Now, I stood in the corner office of Bridal Path Properties, the company I built myself, staring out over the skyline of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The city outside was full of life. Cars moving, people walking, but in my office it was quiet. Just me, and the memories coming back. My phone sat on my desk, its screen glowing with missed calls.
40 of them.
I ignored the unknown numbers. My eyes focused on just one name. Megan. A name I hadn't seen in 21 years. My stomach turned as I pressed play on her voicemail. "Judy, please pick up. Mom and Dad found you. They need your help." I tightened my grip on the phone. She still called me Judy like we were kids again. Like nothing ever happened. I let out a sharp breath and deleted the voicemail. The next one was just the sound of crying. By the third message, she sounded panicked. "Julie, please, you don't understand. They're desperate.
Just talk to me."
I quickly put my phone down before I threw it at my desk. They had found me, and I knew exactly what that meant. I had walked away from them 21 years ago with nothing but a bus ticket and a strong will to survive. I worked 4 jobs. I slept in a tiny apartment that smelled like mold. I pushed my way through college no matter how hard it got. Every part of Bridal Path Properties, my company, was built from the pain of the life they tried to destroy. And now, just when I was finally free, they wanted to be part of it again. I sat down slowly. My hands were shaking a little as I ran them through my hair. I looked at my reflection in the window. I looked calm and in control. But inside, my mind was racing. I had always known this day would come. I just didn't expect it to be today. I kept scrolling through the voicemails until I saw a name I hadn't heard in 21 years. Eric Loren. My father. I paused for a moment before hitting play. As soon as I heard his voice, I froze. "You think you're better than us now?" he said. His words were slurred, heavy with something I recognized too well: bitterness and alcohol. "We made you, Julie. Everything you have is because of us." I clenched my jaw as he kept going. "You think you can just erase us? After all we did for you?" He laughed bitterly. "Well, guess what? Life doesn't work like that. You owe us." The voicemail ended suddenly. Right after that, a text popped up. "Your father is very disappointed in you, Julie. We need to talk. Call us." I stared at the message, my chest feeling tight. Disappointed? They were the ones who left me at a train station. They disappeared from my life. And now, I had somehow let them down? My anger boiled inside me. It was hot, sharp, and impossible to ignore. They hadn't changed at all. I leaned back in my chair, holding my phone tightly as I swallowed the lump in my throat. A part of me, the part still stuck as that scared 17-year-old girl standing alone at the train station, wanted to scream. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't lost. I wasn't helpless. And I wasn't running. I opened my messages and typed a reply to Megan. "Tomorrow. Denny's on T Street. 8 a.m. Come alone, or don't come at all." I hit send, set my phone down, and looked back out at the city. Tomorrow morning, I would see my sister for the first time in 21 years. And this time, I wasn't afraid. I was already sitting at Denny's when Megan walked in. Her eyes moved quickly around the room, searching for me. She looked almost the same sharp cheekbones, same stiff shoulders. But now, time had left its mark. Her posture was a bit slouched, and there were lines around her mouth. She looked like someone who had been carrying too many secrets for too long. She had always been the perfect daughter. The one who followed the rules. The one who kept peace. The one who pretended everything was fine. But now, she looked tired. Our eyes met across the room. Neither of us moved at first. Then she slowly walked over, tucking a piece of hair behind her ear. "Hey, Judy." I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. "I'm not Judy anymore," I said. "I go by Judy now." Megan's smile faded. "Right, sorry," she mumbled as she slid into the booth across from me. Her fingers nervously played with the edge of the plastic menu. "It's been a long time," she said. I didn't answer. I just stared at her, waiting for the real reason she was here. She sighed and set the menu down. "You look good," she offered. I raised an eyebrow. "And you look nervous." Megan gave a small laugh, but it didn't sound real. "Yeah, well, this is complicated." "No, Megan," I said, leaning in. "It's actually very simple. You want something, just say it." Her lips pressed into a thin line. Then she let out a breath. "Mom and Dad, they're in trouble." There it was.
She didn't wait for me to say anything.
The words rushed out, like she had practiced them 100 times. Dad lost a lot of money gambling. Mom has huge credit card debt. They're drowning, Judy. The house is going into foreclosure. I clenched my jaw, still watching her. "They need help," she said softly. "They need you." I let out a long, slow breath. "I don't owe them anything, Megan." She flinched. "I'm not asking you to forgive them," she said quickly. I just want you to listen." My fingers tightened around my coffee cup. Listen? Had anyone listened to me when I was 17? Alone at that train station? Had anyone cared when I stood shivering in the rain because building character was more important than showing kindness? I leaned back in the booth, my stomach twisting with a mix of anger and deep exhaustion. "They didn't just mess up, Megan," I said firmly. "They left me at a train station on purpose." She winced. "They came back an hour later," she whispered. I cut in. And whose fault was that? The air between us felt like glass, fragile, cracking, full of everything we never said. Megan blinked quickly, her fingers twisting in her lap. "They thought you'd come home. They thought you'd crawl back." I finished for her, just like always. She stared down at the table, breathing shallow. I shook my head. I'm not their daughter anymore, Megan. I haven't been for a very long time.
Her shoulders started to shake.
But I didn't soften. I reached into my pocket, pulled out some cash, and dropped the bills on the table. If they ever try to contact me again, I said, I won't be so polite. Megan stayed there, staring at the table. I got up and walked away without looking back. I thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. The next morning, I threw myself into work, trying to forget everything that happened at Denny's. The talk with Megan had left a bad taste in my mouth. But I wasn't going to let it ruin my day. The past was the past. I had built something strong, something real. And no one, not even them, could take it from me. Or so I thought. A loud knock on my office door snapped me out of focus. Maria, my assistant, stood in the doorway. Her face looked tense, like she wasn't sure how to tell me something. Hey, she said slowly. I think you need to see this. She stepped inside, phone in hand, pausing before she handed it to me. I frowned and took the phone from her. The screen was open to Facebook. My heart sank as I read the words in front of me. Our daughter left us alone in our old age after everything we gave up for her. Right below it, another post said, we raised her to be strong, and this is how she repays us, heartless. A slow heat rose up my neck. They were making themselves look like the victims, as if they were the ones who had been hurt. There were hundreds of comments. Strangers were attacking me, sharing the posts, even tagging my company's page. I scrolled through the replies, my stomach churning. I can't believe some kids treat their parents like this. What a shame. Ungrateful brat. I hope she ends up alone. Money changes people. Shame on her. I slammed the phone down on my desk. Maria stood there, looking uncomfortable. I didn't want to show you, she said softly, but it's spreading fast. Clients are seeing it. Some people even left bad reviews on Bridal Path Properties page, calling you cold and fake. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't just a couple of posts. It was a full-blown attack. I took a slow, deep breath, trying to steady my hands. Who else knows about this?
I asked.
Maria hesitated. Some of the staff. A few of our major clients. I think some of them are waiting to see how you respond. I nodded. Okay. Thanks, Maria. I'll take care of it. As soon as she left the room, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Megan answered on the third ring. Judy? Her voice was cautious. I gripped the phone tightly. Did you know about this? There was a long silence. Finally, she let out a breath. I told them not to, but they're desperate, Judy. I gave a dry, bitter laugh. Desperate people don't attack their own children. They just want help, Megan said quietly. They think this is the only way to reach you. By lying. I snapped. By turning the internet against me? Megan didn't reply. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. I should have known better than to believe they'd ever change. I hung up before she could say anything else. Almost instantly, a text popped up. You ungrateful brat. Take that post down. I stared at the message, feeling a calm rage build inside me. Then I opened my own social media account and started typing. Some people rewrite the past to avoid taking responsibility. I won't let that happen. I hit post and tossed the phone on my desk. They wanted a fight? Fine. Let them fight. I had thought the Facebook posts were the worst of it, but then they showed up at my office. It had already been a long, exhausting week. I'd been busy fixing the damage, checking company pages, answering worried clients, and doing everything I could to keep my personal life from affecting my business. I ignored the sudden wave of messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, people who now had strong opinions about a story they knew nothing about. I was barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and pure determination. Then the intercom on my desk crackled. Julie, Maria's voice came through hesitant. There's an elderly couple here. They say they need to see you. I froze. The coffee in my hand suddenly tasted bitter. Did they give their names? I asked, even though I already knew. Maria let out a sigh. They said they're your parents. I exhaled quickly and forced my face to stay calm. Tell them I'm in a meeting. There was a short pause. "They're making a scene," she said quietly. Of course they were. I set my coffee down, pushed back my chair, and walked toward the lobby. The moment I stepped through the doors, I saw them. Sophia was putting on a show, pretending to cry, holding a wrinkled tissue to her face. Eric stood next to her, arms crossed, looking around like he was ready to start a fight. As soon as Sophia saw me, her face crumpled. "My baby," she cried loudly, making people turn to look. "You won't even speak to your own mother." I stopped walking, my jaw clenched tight. Around us, staff whispered. Some pulled out their phones and started recording, like they were watching a scene from a reality show. I swallowed hard, trying not to show how sick this made me feel. Eric sneered. "You've turned into one of those people, huh? The kind who forgets where they came from." I didn't even flinch.
"Leave. Now."
Sophia gasped and clutched her chest like she was about to faint. "I gave birth to you, Julie. I raised you. And now you treat us like we mean nothing?" I clenched my fists and stared her down. "You are nothing to me." A wave of shocked gasps filled the lobby. For a second, everything went silent. Then Eric's face turned red with anger. "You think your money makes you better than us?" he shouted so everyone could hear. And then Sophia actually dropped to her knees, crying into her hands like she was truly heartbroken. "We just wanted to talk to you, to see you, but you've become so cruel." People around us whispered. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked entertained. I had had enough. I stepped forward and lowered my voice, speaking firmly and clearly. "If you don't leave right now, I'll have security escort you out." Eric took a step closer. His voice turned low and cold. "You owe us, Julie. We made you who you are." Sophia stopped crying all of a sudden and looked up. Her eyes weren't sad, they were cold. "You can't erase us, sweetheart," she said quietly. "You'll always be our daughter." I let out a sharp breath and turned to the security guard nearby. "Please escort them out." Eric laughed bitterly. "You're going to regret this." Sophia stood up and smoothed her dress like nothing had happened. "Poor thing," she said loudly enough for everyone around to hear. "Too much money. Not enough heart." I stood still and watched as security walked them out. Their voices echoed through the glass doors as they left. I should have known they weren't finished. This was only the beginning. The next day, a letter arrived. Maria walked in and placed a thick envelope on my desk, her eyebrows drawn together with concern. "This came by courier," she said. "It's from a law firm." I didn't move right away. I just stared at the envelope, feeling like I had been through this before. Another problem. Another attempt to pull me back into the mess I had worked so hard to escape. Slowly, I picked it up and tore it open. As soon as I read the first few lines, my heart started beating faster. My parents were suing me, using something called filial responsibility laws. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Unbelievable. They were actually trying to legally force me to pay for their lives. The same parents who left me at a train station when I was 17. The same people who ignored me for 21 years. Now, they wanted me to clean up their mess? I dropped the letter onto my desk and rubbed the bridge of my nose. Maria stood near the door. "You okay?" she asked gently. I let out a breath through my nose. "Call James. I need to talk to my lawyer." She nodded and walked out. Minutes later, I was pacing across my office, phone pressed to my ear as James picked up. When I finished reading the letter to him, he said calmly, "Well, technically, in some states, they might have a case." I stopped walking. "You're saying they can abandon me as a kid, and now I owe them money?"
He sighed.
"It's rare, but sometimes courts side with the parents, depending on the situation. Wisconsin doesn't have strong filial responsibility laws, but if they push this hard enough, they could still make your life difficult." I pressed my hand to my forehead. "Unbelievable. They're hoping you'll settle," James said. "That you'll give them money just to avoid a long court fight." I laughed bitterly. "Then they don't know me at all." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I almost didn't answer. Almost.
But something inside me snapped.
Before I could stop myself, I hit accept. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat. Sophia's voice came through, overly sweet. Julie, sweetheart, we just want to work something out. We wouldn't have to do this if you'd just help us. I clenched my jaw. Help you? I asked coldly. After everything you did to me? She let out a fake, dramatic sigh, like I was the one being difficult. Honey, that was so long ago. Families fight. Parents make mistakes. But we're still your parents, and we need help. I felt my hand tighten around the phone. You're not my parents, I said. You lost that right the day you drove away. There was a pause. Then her voice turned cold. If you fight us, we'll take this to court. Do you really want that kind of embarrassment? I almost laughed. She really thought she could threaten me with embarrassment? My anger turned sharp, clear, focused, and strong. Try me, I said, my voice calm and firm. Then I hung up. I stood still for a moment. My heartbeat was steady, not from fear, but from anger. They thought they could break me. They had no idea who I had become. Then they came after my business. I should have seen it coming, after the lawsuit, after the online posts, after all their desperate moves to get back into my life. Of course they weren't done. But just because I expected it didn't make it hurt any less when it happened. I was at my desk, going through paperwork, when Maria knocked and peeked inside. Her face looked tense. You might want to check your email, she said carefully. I raised an eyebrow but picked up my phone. The moment I saw the subject line, my stomach dropped. Concerning allegations against you. I opened the email quickly. Julie, I hope this isn't true, but I wanted to let you know. We've received several anonymous messages accusing you of financial misconduct, especially with your family. They say you stole money, ran away from your responsibilities, and have a history of lying. We value our partnership, but we need you to clear this up. The email was from one of our biggest investors. My heart started racing as I scrolled down. Attached were screenshots of fake emails, all saying the same things. That I had taken money from my parents. That I used their money to build my company. That I was a fraud. I let out a hard breath and dropped my phone onto the desk. My hands were shaking. Maria stood in the doorway, looking concerned. What's going on? I took a slow breath and forced myself to stay calm. They're trying to destroy me. She frowned. Who? I grabbed my phone and started dialing. Who do you think? 15 minutes later, I was on the phone with one of my business partners. He sounded unsure. Look, Julie, I don't want to believe any of this, but we've received a lot of these messages. Do you know where they're coming from? I asked, my voice tight. There was silence. Then, reluctantly, he said, some of the emails were traced to an IP address linked to your parents. I closed my eyes and gripped the edge of my desk. They had gone too far. First, they tried guilt. Then they tried public shame. Now, they were trying to destroy everything I had worked for. They had made a big mistake. Because now it was war. I called an emergency meeting with my PR team. They sat across from me, serious and tense. One of them spoke. Our advice? Don't say anything right now. Stay quiet and let this pass. No, I said firmly. Not this time. I turned to my laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I wrote my own statement. For years, I suffered under the control of manipulative parents. I walked away to protect myself. Now, after 21 years, they're trying to ruin my name and destroy my business. I will not stay silent. I will protect what I've built. I hit post. Let them try. I wasn't afraid anymore. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Eric. You ungrateful brat. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed back. If you keep going, I will take legal action. This is your last warning. I hit send. No reply. But I knew they wouldn't stop. They wanted a war? Fine. I was ready for one. The next day, I got a court summons. Maria walked into my office, her face pale, and gently placed a thick envelope on my desk. It's from a law firm, she said softly. I didn't need to ask who it was from. I already knew. I took the envelope and slowly tore it open. The bold text at the top confirmed what I already guessed. Eric and Sophia Loren versus Julie Loren. Reason: failing to support parents under state law. A bitter laugh slipped out of me. So this was their final move. When guilt didn't work, when public shame didn't work, when attacking my business didn't work, now they were using the law. Maria stood in the doorway. "What do you want to do?" she asked. I let out a sharp breath and grabbed my phone. "Call James. Tell him I'm on my way." Later, I sat in James's office, the lawsuit spread out on the shiny wooden desk between us. He read through the papers, shaking his head. "Their case is weak," he said at last, looking up at me. "Wisconsin doesn't strongly enforce these laws, but if they stir up enough attention, it could hurt your reputation." I clenched my fists. "Then we go public, but on our terms." James raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" I nodded without hesitation. "I've been quiet long enough. People need to know the truth about who they really are." That night, I wrote my public statement. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I shared everything. How my parents treated me, how they taught lessons through cruelty, and how they left me alone at a train station when I was 17 and never came back. I told how they only reached out when they needed something. By the next morning, my post had gone viral. Everything changed fast. The same strangers who once judged me for being ungrateful were now angry on my behalf. The comments came flooding in. "This is heartbreaking. Who leaves their child and then tries to take their money?" I believed the parents at first, but now, they got what they deserved. Suing your own child after abandoning them? Unbelievable. People finally saw the truth. The story had flipped. They had lost control. 4 days later, Megan called me. Her voice was low and shaky. "They lost everything, Judy." I sat in my car, staring at the city lights. "That's on them." She breathed out heavily. "They're blaming you." Of course they were. I gripped the steering wheel. "No, Megan. They made every choice that led to this. Not me." For once, she didn't argue. A week later, I drove past our old house. A big for sale sign stood in the yard. It looked smaller than I remembered, and empty. I thought I might feel proud, like I'd won. But all I felt was peace. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need people to agree with me. What mattered was that they no longer had power over me. And that was enough. For the first time in 21 years, I finally felt free. No more stress. No more fear. No more wondering when they'd show up again trying to pull me back into the past. I was home. The city of Milwaukee stretched out beyond my balcony, glowing in the soft evening light. A warm breeze brushed against my skin. I sat with my legs tucked under me, a glass of wine in my hand. Everything was quiet now. The chaos had passed. But even peace, it seemed, had one last test. A knock at my door broke the silence. I didn't even have to move. I already knew who it was. I opened the door and saw Megan standing there. Her eyes were red. She looked tired and worn out. "Judy," her voice cracked. "Please." I didn't speak. She stepped closer and whispered, "They have nowhere to go. Dad's drinking again. Mom keeps saying they just need one more chance. They're still our parents." I held onto the door frame, my heart feeling heavy. She still didn't understand. "They made their choice," I said calmly. Megan's face fell apart. "How can you be so cold, heartless, selfish?" I finished for her. Tears ran down her cheeks. "I just don't want to lose my sister because of all this." I took a deep breath, my throat tight. "You didn't lose me," I said softly. "They did." Megan let out a shaky sob. Her hands trembled as she wiped her face. "They just need." I shook my head. "I'm not the one who needs to fix what they broke." Her shoulders dropped. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stepped back. "Take care of yourself, Megan." Then I closed the door. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. An hour later, I sat on my balcony, watching the sun slowly sink behind the city skyline. For years, their voices had played in my mind, even when they were gone. The guilt, the shame, the what-ifs. But now? Just silence. And it was beautiful. I took out my phone and opened my contacts. I stopped at Aunt Helen, the only real family I ever had. I typed, "Dinner this weekend. My treat." Her reply came right away. Finally, I've been waiting for you to ask. Mexican or Italian? A small smile formed on my face. Mexican. Extra margaritas. Then I took a deep breath and opened my call log. My parents' numbers stared back at me like ghosts from the past. It was time. I blocked them both. No more second chances. No more guilt. No more control. I walked back inside and closed the door behind me. I wasn't running anymore. I was free. Before the story ends, I want to leave you with something to think about. For years, I carried the weight of a past I never asked for. I let guilt, duty, and fear of being seen as ungrateful control my choices. But here's what I've learned. Family isn't about blood. It's about who truly stands by you. Sometimes, the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us the worst. And when that happens, you have two options. Let it define you, or let it go. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong. Setting boundaries isn't mean, it's how you survive. And choosing yourself after being told you don't matter? That's freedom. So, if anyone has ever made you feel guilty for picking peace over pain, let me tell you this. You don't owe anyone your suffering just because they share your DNA. You deserve to be free. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic relationship, family or not? How did it change you? Drop a 2 in the comments if this story touched your heart. Or tell me where you're watching from. And if this story didn't sit right with you, let me know why. I respect every opinion. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another powerful message. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share more with you. Until next time, choose yourself. Always. Hey, I'm Megan. My story isn't like the happy ones you usually hear. It's kind of messy, just like me, I guess. When I was 6, my dad left us. He didn't say much. He just walked out one day and never came back. My mom, Isabella, didn't take it well. I don't really blame her, but I was the one who suffered the most. Megan, dear chores. Her voice would break the silence in our small house, like a sharp sound cutting through the air. She always made me feel like I was just a problem in her life. I'm doing them, Mom, I'd say, trying to keep my voice calm. I learned early that talking back only made her angrier. Still, sometimes I couldn't help it. She would just sigh and say I was as useless as my dad. That really hurt. I didn't even remember him much, but to her I looked and acted just like him. It was like I reminded her every day of the man who left us. Most days, she was out trying to build a better life for us. At least that's what she said. But really, I was alone most nights. Or stuck with her friends, who didn't want me around. Watch Megan. She'd tell them like I was some pet she didn't want to deal with. When she was home, she barely showed any love. Maybe a quick pat on the head or a half-hearted uh-huh while I talked about my day or asked about Dad. She never really listened. One evening, I tried to hug her. I just wanted to feel like her daughter. But she pulled away and gave me a cold look. "What do you want now?" she snapped, like I was bothering her. "Nothing," I said quietly, stepping back. After that, I stopped asking for hugs. School wasn't much better either. I was the quiet kid, the one wearing old clothes that used to belong to someone else. At every parent-teacher meeting, my mom never showed up. "Why is your mom never here, Megan?" the other kids would ask. What could I say? That she didn't care? One day, Isabella came home in an even worse mood than usual. She had a fight with one of her friends, the kind of friend who was supposed to watch me but never really did. "Why can't you be like other kids, Megan?" she shouted. "Look at you, sitting there with your silly books. You're just like your father, a complete waste of space." I bit my lip, trying not to cry. Fighting back wouldn't help. It never did. "Sorry, Mom," was all I could say, even though I didn't understand what I had done wrong. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the stillness of the house. It was so quiet, but it felt heavy, like the silence was full of sadness. I felt unwanted, unloved. I made a promise to myself. One day, I would change my life. I wouldn't end up like Isabella, angry and alone. I didn't know how yet, but I had to believe that life had something better for me. Then Paul came into our lives. Mom married him quickly, and suddenly, we were a family again. But when my baby sister Emma was born, everything changed. It was like I disappeared. I became invisible in the house that once felt like home. Megan, look at your sister. Why can't you be more like her? Mom would say. She'd look at Emma with so much love at her eyes, love I hadn't seen in a long time. I tried to remember the last time she looked at me that way, but I couldn't. I just looked down and tried not to let her words hurt me. What do you mean, Mom? I asked quietly. She let out a loud sigh, full of frustration. Emma is so neat and lovely. And you look at you in those big, baggy clothes. Always hiding. Who knows what you're trying to cover up? You could be pretty if you just tried. Sometimes Paul would speak up, trying to make peace. Isabella, Megan's fine just the way she is. She's smart and kind. But Mom would quickly shut him down. I'm talking to my daughter, Paul. Stay out of it, she'd say coldly. As time passed, the distance between me and Emma grew. She enjoyed being the favorite, and she used it to get what she wanted. She'd smile sweetly while making trouble for me. Mom, Megan won't share her makeup with me. Emma would lie, even though she knew it wasn't true. I hardly had enough for myself, but Mom would still snap at me. I bought that for both of you, she'd say, without even checking what really happened. Why do you always have to be so selfish? But I tried to explain, only to be silenced by her angry glare. Paul, bless him, tried to calm things down, but most of the time, it didn't work. One evening, I was helping Emma with her homework. Out of nowhere, she knocked her glass of juice over my papers on purpose. Oops, she said, without a bit of regret in her voice. Paul saw what happened. He looked serious. Emma, apologize to your sister, he said firmly. Emma pouted and quickly switched to her fake sweet voice. I didn't mean to, Daddy. I'm sorry, Megan, she said, lying through her teeth. Just then, Mom walked in. She looked at us both, and without even asking what happened, she took Emma's side. Megan, can't you see she's sorry? Stop overreacting and clean it up, she said coldly. I was so frustrated, but I didn't say anything. I just cleaned up the mess. It hurt so much, the unfairness of it all. It was always like this. Emma said something, and I was always the one blamed. In Mom's eyes, I was always the problem. One day, I was feeling sad and just wanted to feel close to someone. Without thinking, I called Paul Dad. It just slipped out as natural as breathing. But right after I said it, everything changed. Mom's face twisted with anger. How dare you, she yelled. You have a father, Megan. Paul is not him. You're just trying to replace him because he didn't want you. Her words hit me hard, like a punch straight to the chest. Paul looked shocked. He didn't know what to say. He stood there, caught between his wife and me. I could feel my voice shaking, and I couldn't stop the pain from showing. I tried to speak, but the words broke into pieces. Oh, so what? You think you can just pretend we're a happy little family now? Mom's words were full of poison. Each one cut deep, like a knife aimed at my heart. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran to my room, trying to block out the sound of Emma laughing in the hallway. I was the outsider, the one no one really wanted. This house didn't feel like home. It was full of favorites, cold looks, and quiet battles no one else could see. Paul tried to comfort me, but his kind words felt like a small bandage on a deep wound. It couldn't fix everything. Growing up in that house was hard, really hard. And as I got older, things only got worse. When I hit my teen years, home life turned from bad to awful. Mom's words became even meaner, and Emma? She turned into a little queen, bossy, smug, and always backed up by Mom, who cheered her on. I was trying on clothes in my room when I heard the door slightly open. From the hallway, I could hear Emma giggling. Look at Megan trying to dress up, like putting lipstick on a pig, she said loudly, not even trying to whisper. Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. Shut up, Emma, I snapped, more hurt than angry. Then Mom's voice cut through everything. "Megan, don't talk to your sister like that. And Emma's right. Those clothes don't suit you at all." I just stood there, feeling both angry and embarrassed. I wanted to yell, to tell them both how unfair they were being. But I knew it would only make things worse. Just then, Paul walked in, not realizing what was happening. "What's all the noise about?" he asked, looking at all of us. "Emma's just being her usual sweet self," I muttered, full of sarcasm. Paul sighed and looked tired. "Girls, can't we just get along for once?" "Tell her to stop picking on me then," Emma said in her fake sad voice, acting like the victim again. "I'm not the one starting it," I said quickly. But no one listened. Paul just shook his head and walked away, leaving me alone again. The next day at school, I heard some kids talking about a party. For a moment, I let myself imagine going. Just for once, I wanted to feel normal. But reality came crashing back. I couldn't invite anyone home. Mom would say something rude and scare them away, especially if it was a friend or a boy I liked. She had a way of making sure no one stuck around. One night, Mom started going on again about how I looked. "You could be pretty if you actually tried, Megan. Look at Emma. She takes care of herself." I had enough. I was tired of it. "Why do you always compare me to her?" "I'm not Emma," I said, my voice full of frustration. Mom just rolled her eyes. "Because she sets a good example. You could learn a lot from your sister." It felt like she had slapped me. It was always about Emma. Emma was the smart one, the pretty one, the one who did everything right. And me? I was never enough. I ran to my room, my heart pounding. I finally let myself cry. I was the outsider in my own family. No matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. They always made me feel like I didn't belong. Falling in love should have been something exciting, something happy, right? Maybe for other people. But for me, it felt like walking blindfolded through a minefield. After everything I'd been through at home, all I wanted was something kind, something soft, something real. But every time I thought I found love, boom, everything exploded in my face. I met David at work. He was funny, had a great smile, and didn't seem to mind that I was a little awkward. We got along really well, and for a moment I thought, maybe this could turn into something real. One night, I decided to bring him home, thinking it would be okay. Big mistake. "Megan, who's this?" Mom asked, looking at David like he was something dirty she found under the sink. "This is David, Mom. We work together," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. David smiled politely and reached out his hand. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," he said kindly. Mom gave him a small, fake smile and didn't say much. Then, once we sat down, it began. She had this way of finding exactly what would hurt me most and saying it with a sweet tone that made it worse. "So, David," she said, "Megan's not much to look at, but she has a good heart, I guess. At least she keeps her room clean." Her voice sounded nice, but the words were cruel. I felt my face turn red, and my heart sank. David looked at me, confused, maybe even feeling sorry for me. That look, it hurt more than anything else. He tried to speak up. "Actually, I think Megan's amazing, smart, and really funny," he said, trying to stand up for me. But Mom wasn't done. "Oh, sure. But, boys have to be careful. Girls like Megan can get too clingy. One date, and they start dreaming about wedding dresses." Each word cut deeper than the last. I just wanted the night to end. David left, and with him went any chance we had. After that, he was still polite at work, but distant. I didn't blame him. Who would want to deal with a family like mine? And it wasn't just David. There was Kenneth, Jeffrey, and a few others. Different guys, same ending. Either Mom scared them away with her comments, or Emma made up some lie about me to embarrass me. Eventually, I stopped bringing guys home. I started meeting them outside. But by then, the damage was done. My confidence was gone. Every date felt like a countdown, just waiting for the moment they'd find out about my family and walk away. One night, after another bad date, I came home and saw Paul sitting alone in the living room. The TV light flickered on his tired face. "Rough night?" he asked gently. "Yeah, you could say that," I replied, sitting down next to him. He looked at me and said, "Megan, you're amazing. Any guy would be lucky to have you." He meant it, I could tell. I wanted so badly to believe him. But it's hard to believe in yourself when your own mom and sister are always ready to tear you down. I didn't feel like I was enough. "Thanks, Paul. Just have to keep looking, right?" I said with a fake smile. But inside, I felt broken. "Yeah, keep looking.
He's out there, Megan."
"Someone who'll see how amazing you really are," Paul said kindly. His hope was like a little light in all the darkness I was feeling. I nodded. I wasn't sure I believed him, but I was thankful he believed in me. Maybe one day, I'd meet someone who would look past all the mess and still want to stay. Until then, I'd keep hoping for a kind of love strong enough to handle my crazy life. Now, here I am. Megan. I'm 28, and I've built a small life for myself. I work as an economist at a big company, and I have my own little apartment, nothing fancy, but it's mine. And then everything changed. I met Larry.
He's not just some guy, he's the guy.
The one I can actually imagine spending forever with. One evening, while we were relaxing on my old thrift store couch, Larry looked at me seriously but sweetly. "Megan," he said, "I think it's time we meet each other's families. If we're serious about this, and I know I am, then they should know." My stomach flipped. Meeting his family? No problem.
But mine?
That's a whole other story. "Larry, you know I'm all in," I said. "But my family, it's not simple." He gently held my hand and smiled. "Hey, everyone's family is a little crazy. How bad can it be?" So I told him. Everything.
About Mom.
About Emma. I didn't leave out the ugly parts. To my surprise, he didn't run away. Instead, he held my hand tighter. "We'll face them together," he said. Just like that, I felt a little braver. So, I called the one person I could always count on, Paul. He'd always been the calm in the middle of my family storm. "Paul, I've got something to tell you," I said. "I'm seeing someone, his name is Larry. And, we're engaged." There was a small pause, and then he said, "Megan, that's amazing. When can we meet him?" His happiness wrapped around me like a warm blanket. He didn't even stop to ask if, he went straight to when. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Soon, Paul. I'm just a little nervous about Mom and Emma." "Don't worry," he said. "I'll handle things on this side. Just bring that young man over. It's time for some good news around here." After I hung up, I turned to Larry. He had been quietly watching me, his eyes full of concern and curiosity. "Well," I said, smiling, "Paul's in. Looks like we're really doing this." Larry pulled me into a hug. "See? That's step one. We've got this. We'll handle the rest together." I couldn't stop feeling nervous. Meeting Larry's parents had gone better than I ever expected. They were kind, friendly, and made me feel welcome. Everything you'd hope for in future in-laws. It gave me a little bit of hope, maybe even too much. Now, I was walking back and forth in my living room, trying to hold on to that same hope. Dinner at my mom's house was coming up, and I was scared. Larry, always the positive one, kept telling me it would be fine. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't just a dinner, it felt like a battle. My painful past facing off against my possible future. Still, with Larry next to me, I felt a little stronger. But I couldn't stop thinking about all the ways it could go wrong. In my mind, I pictured every possible disaster, each one worse than the last. "Megan, it'll be okay," Larry said, stopping me as I paced. He pulled me into a hug. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together." The air felt heavy as we walked up to my mom's house. We were both bracing for what could happen, but neither of us expected the surprise we got. "Megan, Larry." My mom greeted us at the door with a big smile. Her usual coldness was gone, replaced by warmth that felt fake. Once we were inside, and the introductions were done, she dropped the first surprise. "So, Larry, Megan tells me you're some big-time director at your company," she said, her eyes lighting up in a way I hadn't seen in years. Larry, always humble, smiled and said, "Well, I wouldn't say big-time, but yeah, I've worked hard to get where I am." And just like that, Mom changed. She was suddenly full of smiles and compliments, hanging on every word Larry said. The way she acted was almost funny if it didn't hurt so much. Dinner was served, and the mood in the room was completely different. Mom kept bragging, doing her best to make our family look perfect. She focused a lot on Emma. Emma just got into the honors program at school, she said proudly, looking at Larry as if to say, "See, we're all high achievers." Emma smiled and added her own praise. "Yeah, I've always been top of my class. I guess it just runs in the family." I rolled my eyes, but said nothing. Larry gave my hand a gentle squeeze under the table, silently letting me know he had my back. Paul, always trying to be fair, mentioned some of the things I had achieved too. But Mom didn't let him finish. She quickly changed the topic back to Emma or to Larry's career. As the evening went on, it became more and more clear. Mom had a plan, and it had nothing to do with getting to know Larry or being kind to me. She was clearly trying to build a connection with Larry, probably to make sure she stayed close to what she thought was our new success. "Larry, you must come from a very hard-working family," Mom said, glancing back and forth between him and Emma. "It's so important to teach strong values to our children, don't you think?" Larry, being the kind and respectful person he is, handled it calmly. "Absolutely. Hard work and honesty are really important," he said, making sure to look at me while he spoke, including me in the conversation. When it was time to leave, Mom wouldn't stop clinging to him. "You have to come over for dinner again soon, Larry. It was such a pleasure having you here," she said sweetly, almost forgetting I was standing right there. Once we got into the car, Larry let out a long breath and said, "Wow, that was something else. Your mom really knows how to put on a show." I sighed and leaned back in my seat. "Yes, sorry about that. She only sees what she wants to see." Larry reached over and took my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Hey, remember, we're in this together. Nothing she says or does can change that." The next day, I was still thinking about everything that happened when my phone rang. It was Larry, and I could tell right away something was off. His voice was tight, like he was trying to stay calm, but couldn't. "Megan, you're not going to believe this," he said. "Your mom, she called me." I froze. "She called you? How did she even get your number?" "She must have found it on some work paper you left at her house," he said. "But it's what she said that's insane." My heart dropped. "What did she say, Larry?" "She asked me to break up with you and marry Emma instead," he said quickly, like he still couldn't believe it himself. It felt like I'd been hit in the stomach. "She what?" The words didn't feel real. It was like we were talking about someone else's life, not ours. "Yeah, I know. It's beyond messed up," Larry said. "But I have an idea. Let's expose her. Let's show everyone who she really is." Now fast forward. I'm sitting in a cafe, wearing a wig and sunglasses, my heart racing. I sat in the cafe, watching Larry and my mom at a table nearby. She spoke confidently, laying out her crazy plan like she was making a business deal. She had no idea there was a small recorder hidden in Larry's jacket. When the meeting ended, Mom walked out of the cafe smiling, full of pride. I just watched her go, shaking my head. She didn't seem like my mom anymore. It was like a stranger was wearing her face. Larry came over to me, his face showing both worry and anger. "You okay, Megan?" he asked. I looked at him, knowing exactly what I wanted now.
Yeah.
"I'm okay," I said. "Let's go home. We have a wedding to plan." The day had come to tell the truth. No more lies. No more pretending. I walked into my parents' house, not as the same Megan they thought they could control, but as someone who now saw through all their lies. As soon as I stepped in, Mom greeted me with a smug smile. "Well, look who showed up. Too bad Larry won't be joining you anymore, right? He's chosen Emma over you," she said with fake sadness in her voice. Paul was standing next to her, looking confused. His eyes moved from Mom to Emma, then to me. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice full of concern. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at Larry, who had just walked in behind me. We nodded at each other, no more hiding. It was time to end this once and for all. "Actually, Mom, Larry is here," I said, stepping aside so she could see him. Her smile faded for a second. She quickly covered it up, trying to act like she didn't care. The room went silent. Everyone could feel something big was about to happen. Larry pulled out the recorder and pressed play. My heart was beating fast, knowing what was about to be heard. Then her voice filled the room. "I never loved Megan," she said on the recording. "And Paul, I married him for his money. Nothing more." When the recording stopped, the words still hung in the air. The silence that followed felt heavy and hard to breathe. Finally, Paul spoke. His voice was soft, almost a whisper, but full of pain. I can't believe this." He stared at the recorder, then looked at Mom, hoping she would deny it or show some regret. But she didn't. Paul stood up. The look in his eyes said everything. "That's it.
"I'm done," he said.
"I want a divorce," Paul said. His voice was firm now, full of certainty. "You need to leave the house." What happened next was chaos. There were shouting, blaming, and tears. Our family, already broken, fell apart completely. Mom and Emma, who had worked together in their lies and greed, were finally facing the results of what they'd done. They were left alone, pushed away by the mess they created. As for me, I stood there in the middle of it all, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Yes, the truth hurt, but it also freed me from the lies that had trapped us for so many years. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. I started making plans for my future with Larry, one built on love and honesty. We got married in a small, simple ceremony with only close friends and people who truly cared about us. Paul was there too. His presence reminded me that not all family ties were lost. As for Mom and Emma, I made the hard choice to cut them out of my life. It wasn't easy, but I needed it. I needed space, peace, and a fresh start. As Larry and I stood together, holding hands, I knew this was only the beginning. A brand new chapter. One without secrets or pain from the past. We were ready to face the future, together. I still remember the day I met Kevin like it happened just yesterday. I was sitting in a small, old cafe, drinking the cheapest coffee on the menu, trying to clear my mind and figure out what to do next with my life. Then, out of nowhere, he walked in. It felt like a moment from a movie, but without the dramatic music or fancy lighting. Just the sound of the doorbell and the mix of old coffee and the sharp smell of his aftershave filled the air. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the chair across from me. He had a smile that could make anyone's heart skip a beat. I tried to stay calm, even though my heart was racing. "Looks free to me," I said, hoping I didn't sound too nervous. We started talking, and it felt like we clicked instantly. He liked all the weird little things I liked, like binge-watching silly TV shows and arguing over the best pizza topping. He loves pineapple on pizza, by the way, and defended it like his life depended on it. Time flew by, and before we knew it, we weren't just casually dating anymore. It felt serious, like I'd known him forever. Soon, we were even talking about marriage. That's when things started to get tricky. Meeting his parents was like stepping into a lion's cage. They smiled, sure, but it felt like they were also judging me at the same time, trying to figure out if I was good enough. "So, you're the girl Kevin won't stop talking about?" his mom asked. Her voice sounded sweet, but there was something sharp hidden in her tone that made me feel uncomfortable. "Guilty as charged," I said with a nervous smile, trying to stay calm even though she was already getting under my skin. It didn't take long before they made their expectations clear. They wanted Kevin and me to sign a prenup. Now, I'm not a gold digger, and I've never needed anyone's money. But the way they brought it up, like they didn't trust me at all, just didn't sit right with me. So I told them, "Fine. I'll sign your prenup." I looked him in the eye and said firmly, "I'll sign it, but only if we add one condition. If either of us cheats, the cheater has to pay the other $300,000. Kevin's eyes widened like I'd just slapped him. "Babe, I would never cheat on you," he said, looking shocked and serious. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing, right before I caught him doing exactly that," I replied, making it clear I wasn't joking. "So, it's either this, or there's no deal." Kevin agreed. His parents did too, but they didn't look happy about it. Their faces looked like they had just swallowed something sour. We thought that would be the last of the drama. But we were wrong. One evening, we were cuddled up on our old, worn-out couch, the one we had promised to replace at least 100 times. We never did, though, because it had become our favorite spot. The TV was on, but we weren't really paying attention. We were too busy talking and dreaming about a trip to Poland. "Kevin, just imagine it," I said excitedly. "The food, the wine, the art, we have to go." He laughed and pulled me closer. "Patricia, babe, you had me at food. But let's be real, our bank account looks more like a backyard camping budget than a romantic trip to Kaliberzeg." I gave him a playful nudge. "Then we'll save. We'll cut back on stuff we don't need. Like, I don't know, your video games?" He gasped like I'd just suggested something unthinkable. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my coffee maker, but not the games." We both burst out laughing. That was just who we were, dreamers with our feet still on the ground. We didn't need luxury to feel happy. Our joy came from the little things. Like how Kevin always made breakfast on Fridays. He wasn't much of a cook, but somehow he'd learned how to make scrambled eggs and toast. The coffee was awful, but I still loved those mornings. "Hey, I'm thinking scrambled eggs today. What do you say?" he'd ask, already heading toward the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast again," I'd yell back. "And I'm making the coffee this time." Then one day, the conversation we had avoided for a while finally came up. We were doing the dishes together, just a simple, everyday chore, but it felt special because we were doing it as a team. "Patricia," Kevin said, breaking the comfortable silence, "we need to talk about starting a family." I froze, still holding a plate in my hand. "I know," I said. It's scary, you know? What if we can't?" Kevin turned to me, drying his hands with a towel. "Then we'll deal with it together," he said. "But we won't know unless we try, right? How hard can it be?" I let out a nervous laugh, feeling both love and worry inside me. Famous last words, babe. But that was always our way. No matter what life threw at us, we faced it side by side. Even when his mom started making not-so-subtle comments about grandchildren every chance she got, we just smiled and tried to laugh it off. "Patricia, darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies?" She'd ask sweetly, but her words always carried a sting. "You're not getting any younger, you know." I'd force a polite smile, biting my tongue to stop myself from saying something back. "We're working on it, aren't we, Kevin?" And Kevin would always jump in to support me.
"Yeah, Mom.
"Relax. These things take time." That's just how it was with us. We took it all as it came, leaning on each other through it all. But as months passed, the pressure started to build. Not just from Linda, but inside us too. We wanted a family so badly. But it just wasn't happening as easily as we'd hoped. And ever since Linda had made it her mission to make my life harder, our home had started feeling more like a battleground. Her weapon? Her sharp, unforgiving words. What used to be small, snide remarks had now become her daily routine. Her words slowly chipped away at my confidence and made me question myself as a wife. Things finally blew up one Thursday during lunch, a day that was supposed to be calm and relaxed. Linda, with her perfect sense of bad timing, showed up uninvited just as we were about to eat. The moment she walked in, the air in the room shifted. Everything became tense. Her eyes scanned the room like she was checking for dust with a white glove. "Well, isn't this just cozy?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She glanced at the simple meal I had made and added, "You've really outdone yourself, Patricia. I can tell you've spent all morning slaving away in the kitchen." She looked straight at me, with a little smirk on her face. I smiled tightly, trying to keep things calm. "It's nothing special, Linda. Just something quick and easy. Please sit down." But the moment we all sat, she started her usual act. "You know, Patricia," she began, her voice full of fake kindness. "I was talking to Mrs. Thomas the other day. Her grandson was just born, and it got me thinking, when are you and Kevin going to give me some good news?" She paused, then added with a little smile, "It's not like you're getting any younger." I could feel my face burn with both embarrassment and anger. I looked at Kevin, silently begging him to say something, to stand up for me. But he just stared down at his plate, pretending to be interested in his food. "Come on, Mom," he mumbled, but it was weak, and we all knew he didn't really mean it. Linda kept going, not backing down. "Kevin, dear, I'm not trying to be mean," she said, "but you're not running a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Patricia if she can't even handle the basic things a wife should? A cleaner and a cook would be a lot more useful, don't you think?" That was it. I couldn't stay quiet any longer. "Linda," I snapped, "I'm doing the best I can. It's not like I don't want children. And about the house and cooking, I didn't know being married meant I signed up to be your personal maid and chef." Linda rolled her eyes. "Well, marriage isn't a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Patricia, and it looks like you're failing at them." The air felt heavy with tension. My eyes were burning with tears I was trying to hold back. But what hurt more than her cruel words was Kevin's silence. Then he finally spoke, but his words made it worse. "Yeah, Mom kind of has a point. Maybe we should think about getting some help around here. It might make things easier for you too." "Easier for me?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut. That's when I realized I was fighting this battle alone. In the days that followed, Linda started coming over even more, and each time, her comments got meaner. She would inspect everything, like she was doing a house check. "You call this clean?" she'd say with a smirk. My eyes must be fooling me, because this looks like a mess. Then came the comments about my looks. "Is that what you're wearing?" she'd ask, raising an eyebrow. A wife should try to look good for her husband. No wonder Kevin is always tired. He has to come home to this. I try to speak up. "Linda, I don't dress for Kevin. I dress for myself. And he's tired because he works hard, not because of me." But it was like talking to a wall. Linda had already made up her mind about me, and nothing I said mattered to her. The worst part wasn't her constant judging. It was that Kevin never stood up for me. After every one of her visits, we'd end up arguing. "Why won't you defend me?" I asked him. "She keeps tearing me down, and you just sit there and let her." "She's old, Patricia," he replied. "She's stuck in her ways. What do you want me to do, kick my own mom out?" "No," I said softly. "I just want you to be my husband.
To stand with me.
Not against me." That's when I realized this wasn't just about Linda anymore. It was about our marriage, about whether we were strong enough to stand together, or if we were going to let her words break us apart. And as days turned into weeks, that question only grew louder in my heart. I realized this wasn't just a rough patch. It felt like we were being attacked from all sides, and if we didn't do something soon, there might be nothing left to fix. Things between Kevin and me had become cold and distant ever since Linda started constantly criticizing me. But it wasn't just the stress at home. Kevin had started acting differently too. And not the kind of different that comes from being busy at work. This felt deeper, something that made my stomach twist with worry. It began with the phone calls. Kevin used to be open about his phone. We never kept secrets. But now, every time he got a call, he would step out of the room. And every time, the name Jacob Work popped up on the screen. "Who's Jacob Work?" I asked one evening, trying to sound casual. Kevin flinched just a little, but I noticed. It was clear he was nervous. "Oh, just a new guy at the office," he said quickly. "He's got a lot of questions." But that wasn't the end of it. Kevin, who never used to care much about his clothes, suddenly started dressing up. His old, faded t-shirts and jeans were replaced by clean button-up shirts, nice pants, and even cologne.
Cologne?
Since when did he care about smelling like a department store? I thought to myself, watching him one morning as he got ready. The sharp clothes. The fancy cologne. The sudden interest in his looks. It wasn't like him at all. "What's with the new style?" I asked, half joking. "Got a job interview or something?" He smirked too fast. "Just felt like changing things up." No harm in that, right? But the changes didn't stop with his clothes. He started staying late at work more and more. He'd text me, "Babe, sorry. This project's killing me. I won't be late, I promise." But the hours passed. Midnight came and went, and I'd still be sitting there, pretending everything was okay. I tried to convince myself it was just work stress. But the feeling that something was wrong never left. It followed me around like a shadow. That's when I did something I never imagined I'd do. I hired a private detective. It felt unreal, like I was in some cheap TV drama. But I needed the truth. I couldn't live in the dark anymore. When the envelope arrived, I just stared at it. It felt like time had frozen. I sat there for what felt like hours before I finally opened it. What I found broke my heart. Photos of Kevin with another woman. They were close. Too close. The way they looked at each other, the way they touched, it was obvious. They looked happy, like they had their own little world. A world that didn't include me. But the photos weren't the worst part. There was a recording too. And that was the real knife to the heart. I listened to their conversation. It was full of sweet words and future plans. This wasn't just a casual affair. They were in love. Or at least, Kevin was in love with her. I sat there with all the proof laid out in front of me, my heart breaking a little more with each passing moment. This was it, the evidence that could destroy our marriage and possibly lead to a messy divorce if it came to that. But I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed to stay calm and think. I needed a plan. A way to deal with this without losing my self-respect. For the next few days, I carried the secret like a heavy weight in my chest. I acted like everything was fine. Kevin kept pretending, and so did I. I smiled, cooked, cleaned, and played the role of the perfect wife, while inside, I was falling apart. Even our conversations felt fake. Every word was chosen carefully, like we were both walking on eggshells. One evening, Kevin looked at me and asked, "You've been quiet lately, everything okay?" His voice almost sounded like he cared. "Yeah, just tired. Work's been crazy." I lied, the words feeling bitter in my mouth. It was just another normal day until it wasn't. I was walking past Kevin's office when I heard voices. The door was slightly open, so I paused. It was Kevin talking to his mother, Linda. Their tone was serious, cold and heavy with something darker. "I'm telling you, Mom," Kevin said, sounding tired and drained. "I can't do this anymore. It's not just the kids. I don't feel anything for Patricia now. It's like we're just roommates, not husband and wife." His words hit me like a slap. Linda didn't even try to hide her cruel tone. "Well, of course you feel that way," she said sharply. "She hasn't given you a child. And let's be honest, what else has she brought into this marriage?" Then, her voice changed, sly and greedy. "But let's not rush anything. My 70th birthday is coming up, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a nice, generous gift from her, would we?" Her words felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. They were using me, planning to take advantage of me just a little longer before tossing me aside. Then Kevin spoke again, his voice now cold and heartless. "Yeah, and after we get that expensive gift, we can get rid of her, right?" "Exactly, dear," Linda replied. Her voice was filled with evil satisfaction. "Just keep her around a little longer." I stood there, frozen. They were planning to kick me out of this family like I was part of a shopping list, like I didn't matter. The pain cut deep, but with it came something else, a fire inside me. A need to get back at them. They thought they could use me and toss me away like trash. They were wrong. I wasn't some weak piece in their twisted game. I was going to show them exactly who I was and what I could do. A few days later, we were all sitting at a family dinner when Linda, wearing her usual smug smile, brought up her birthday. "So, Patricia dear," she said sweetly, "what are you planning for my birthday? I hope it's something special." I looked her straight in the eye, my face calm and controlled. "Actually, Linda, I was thinking of hosting a dinner for you at the most expensive restaurant in the city. A night you'll never forget." Her eyes sparkled with greed. She gave Kevin a quick, satisfied look. They really believed they had won. "Oh, Patricia, that sounds wonderful. Let's keep it small though, just close family," she said, pretending to be modest, her voice sugary sweet. "Of course, Linda. It'll be our pleasure," I replied, each word bitter as it left my mouth. The days leading up to her 70th birthday felt slow and heavy. Every time she made a rude comment or Kevin ignored me, it only made my plan stronger. My idea was simple but bold, something straight out of a movie. I'd throw a fancy dinner to make it look like I cared, and then I'd drop the truth right in front of everyone. The night before the dinner, the tension in our house was thick. Kevin had no idea what I was planning. He lay on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything ready for tomorrow?" he asked without even looking up. "Oh, you could say that," I replied calmly, hiding the storm building inside me. The day of the party came. The restaurant I booked was grand and filled with shining lights and fancy decor. As the guests arrived, the room buzzed with excitement. My heart wasn't nervous. It was beating fast with pure adrenaline. Linda soaked up all the attention, smiling proudly as she looked around. "Oh, Patricia, you've really gone all out. This place is amazing," she said loudly, so everyone could hear. I smiled politely, acting like everything was fine. The conversations at the table were forced, the laughs fake. But I played along, knowing what was about to happen. After dinner, the waiter came up to me quietly. $80,000, he whispered, handing me the bill. Without even blinking, I took it. I handed over my card to pay the bill, and most people didn't even notice. Just then, as Kevin's usual smug smile appeared, he decided it was time to make his move. "Patricia," he said in a cold, emotionless voice, "I think everyone should know something." I looked up confused. "I'm tired of this of us," he continued. We had been drifting apart for months, but hearing him say it out loud still shocked me. "I want a divorce." His words hung in the air like thick smoke, making the room go completely silent. All the noise disappeared in an instant. I sat frozen, trying to make sense of what he had just said. Before I could say anything, Linda jumped in, like she was waiting for this moment. "Well, now that it's out there," she said quickly, "I think it's best if you leave, Patricia. Tonight is about family, and you're not part of it anymore." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone stared at me, waiting to see if I'd break down. But I didn't. I stood up, calm on the outside, even though I was hurting inside. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and walked out. The cold night air hit me as I stepped outside, and with every step I took, the reality sank in deeper. I was leaving behind the only life I had known for years. By the time I reached the apartment, his apartment, a plan had already started forming in my mind. There was no time for crying, no space for sadness. I packed my things quickly, my heart feeling numb. I had made up my mind. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new one. As I zipped up my last suitcase, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, I ignored it, but then I checked and saw Linda's name on the screen. I answered. Her voice was sharp and angry right away. "Patricia, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now." Oh, the irony. I had already expected this. Earlier, I had blocked access to our shared account, knowing Kevin would try to use it to cover the party bill. I let her words hang in the air for a second, then calmly replied, "That's too bad, Linda. But since I'm no longer part of the family, like you said, I guess this is your problem now." She exploded on the phone, screaming and spitting insults, but to me, it was music. I could already picture the mess at the restaurant, the staff demanding payment, Linda panicking, maybe even the police showing up. It was the perfect ending to the fake marriage I had been stuck in. The next morning, divorce papers in hand, I returned to the place that used to be our home one last time. As soon as I walked through the door, I could feel the tension. Kevin and Linda were already arguing, but the moment they saw me, they turned on me together. "You've got some nerve showing up here after what you did last night," Kevin said sharply, his face full of anger and disbelief. Linda, always ready to attack, hissed, "Ungrateful brat. You embarrassed us in front of the whole city." The police showed up. People were filming and laughing. I looked at both of them calmly, even though I was shaking inside. "Embarrassed? That's what you're worried about," I said, pulling out the divorce papers and the photos of Kevin's affair and tossing them onto the table. "You should be more concerned about this." Kevin went pale as he looked at the photos. Linda leaned in, her eyes widening. Their anger quickly turned into shock, and then fear. "Oh, and don't forget the prenup," I added, my voice cold and steady. You cheat, you pay. $200,000 to be exact. Linda's face twisted in rage. You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us. Oh, but I can, I said, and I already have. Kevin's tone suddenly changed. He tried to act gentle, desperate. Please let's talk about this. We can fix it. I laughed, cold and bitter. Fix it? You think you can undo all of this with just words? No, Kevin. It's over. Linda tried to play nice too, her voice soft and fake. Patricia, sweetheart, think about what you're doing. This will ruin us. I looked her in the eye and said, that ship has already sailed, Linda. You should have thought about that before. They kept begging, but I had made my choice. I was done being their victim. In the end, Kevin had no choice but to borrow money from his parents to pay me what he owed. As I walked out of that house for the last time, with a check in my hand, I felt a strange feeling, relief. The pain and betrayal were behind me now. I was free. With the money, I found a small but comfortable place to live. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was mine. A peaceful space where I could start fresh. Life was quieter now, and I liked it. I had a job that kept me busy, kind neighbors who smiled and waved, and a little garden I loved taking care of. But every now and then, news from my old life would reach me. Just the other day, while I was grabbing coffee at a small cafe, I ran into someone from my old neighborhood. After the usual small talk, they leaned in and lowered their voice like they were about to share a big secret. Have you heard the latest drama about your ex and his mom? I raised an eyebrow, feeling curious. No, I haven't. What happened? I asked. The gossip was too good to ignore. Turns out, Kevin's new girlfriend wasn't getting along with Linda at all. They were always arguing and clashing. It sounded way worse than anything I had gone through. Compared to that, my time with them looked easy. As I walked away with my coffee in hand, I felt nothing but relief. There was a time when news like that would have hurt me or sent me into a spiral. But now? It was just someone else's problem, not mine. These days, my biggest worries are things like whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels eat them, or if I'll ever learn how to do yoga without wobbling like a baby deer on ice. Life is simpler now, quieter, and honestly, so much sweeter on this side of the chaos. Life can change in a second. 1 minute, I was 33, happily married and planning my future. The next minute, I was a widow, looking at cremation options because my husband's body was too damaged for an open casket. That's what happened to me, Jessica. 7 months ago, my husband Adam died in a terrible car crash. Since then, I've been drowning in sadness and trying to figure out how to live in this new, painful life. The first few weeks felt like a dream. I was busy with funeral plans, getting so many calls, and spending sleepless nights. If my parents hadn't taken over most of the funeral work, I don't know how I would have handled it. Jessica, honey, we've arranged everything with the funeral home, my mom said softly, more gently than I'd ever heard her speak. You just focus on yourself right now. A support group for people who lost their loved ones became my safe place. Every Friday evening, I sat in a circle with others who understood the deep pain in my chest. Some days are harder than others, I said in one meeting, my voice so quiet. Sometimes I wake up and forget he's gone just for a second. Rachel, who had lost her husband 3 years ago, gently held my hand. That's normal, sweetie. Grief comes in waves, she said kindly. As time went by, I had to deal with other things. Adam had made sure I'd be okay, financially. We had a house in the suburbs, an apartment in the city, and a good amount of money in the bank. I could have left my job at the marketing firm, but the thought of staying home all day alone scared me. So I chose to work part-time, just enough to keep myself busy. The biggest surprise was how my relationship with my parents changed. Growing up, I always felt like they cared more about my younger sister, Laura. They never missed her dance shows or school plays, while my good grades barely got a well done. But after Adam died, something between us changed. I offered to help my parents by sending them $3,000 every month. I didn't even think twice. Our weekly dinners at their house had become something I looked forward to. Mom would make her famous pot roast, Dad would pour some wine, and we'd talk about all kinds of things. For the first time in my life, I felt like they were really paying attention to me. "Jessica, tell us more about that new project you're working on," Dad would ask, actually showing interest in my job for once. "The marketing campaign is going well," I'd reply, enjoying the feeling of being seen. "My boss thinks it might bring in a few new clients." But everything changed the night my sister Laura came over for dinner. She walked in, 8 months pregnant, and just like always, the whole room turned its attention to her. Laura had been living in a small apartment on the other side of town. I hadn't seen her since Adam's funeral. "Laura, sweetie, sit here," Mom said, rushing to her side and gently moving me aside to make space for her favorite daughter. "Do you need another pillow? Are your feet swollen?" Just like that, I faded into the background again. It was like I became invisible. Their focus was all on Laura and her pregnancy. That old feeling of being ignored came back, and it hurt. I thought I had moved past it, but it returned so quickly. "So, who's the father?" I asked during dinner, trying to be part of the conversation. "Have you told him about the baby?" Laura's face changed. She looked annoyed. "That's my business," she said sharply while pushing food around on her plate. "I don't need to tell everyone about my personal life." Mom quickly defended her. "Jessica, don't ask questions. Your sister doesn't owe anyone an explanation." I couldn't help but notice how different that was from how they treated me. When I was trying to get pregnant through fertility treatments, they always asked questions, gave advice I didn't ask for, and wanted constant updates. But with Laura, they respected her privacy, without a second thought. Later, during another dinner, I asked again, "But how are you going to manage everything by yourself? Babies cost a lot." Laura waved her hand like it was nothing. That usual smug smile appeared on her face. "Don't worry about me or my baby. We won't need anything from anyone," she said confidently. "I've got it all under control." I should have paid more attention to that smile. I'd seen it too many times before. Laura was always starting something new, only for it to fall apart soon after. There was the smoothie business that lasted 3 weeks, the life coach training she never finished, and that time she lost 4 months' rent on a crypto investment. "Trust me," she said, patting her baby bump with a look of confidence that should have warned me. "This time, everything is going to go exactly how I planned." Dad looked at her like she'd just found the cure for a major disease. "That's my girl," he said proudly. "She always finds a way to land on her feet." I took another bite of pot roast, trying to swallow the all-too-familiar feeling of being second best. Some things just never change, I thought, as I watched my parents hang on to every word Laura said. The call from Laura came on a Friday morning. I was at my desk, looking over some marketing reports when my phone lit up with her name. I almost didn't answer it. Our talks were usually short and a bit awkward. But something made me pick up this time. "Jessica," she said in that overly sweet voice she only used when she wanted something, "I'm having my baby shower next weekend at Mom and Dad's. I'd really love it if you could come." I didn't expect that. The last real conversation we had was at Adam's funeral, and even then, she seemed distracted and uncomfortable. "Are you sure?" I asked, not able to hide how surprised I was. I could count on one hand the number of times Laura had ever invited me to anything. "Of course," she laughed, though it didn't sound natural. "You're my only sister. It wouldn't feel right without you. Plus, I have something special planned." Something in her voice made my stomach twist, but I pushed the feeling away. "I'll be there," I said, already thinking of gift ideas. Maybe this was her way of fixing things between us. The next Sunday, I showed up at my parents' house carrying 2 nicely wrapped gifts, a fancy baby monitor and a handmade baby blanket. Even though Laura and I didn't always get along, this was still my future niece or nephew. The house looked like it had been hit by a pastel storm. Pink and blue balloons were everywhere, streamers hung from every wall, and in the middle of the room stood a giant diaper cake, decorated like it belonged at a fancy party. Trust Laura to make this into a big event. Half the town seemed to be there. Aunt Carolyn was chatting with her daughters, Mom's bridge club friends had taken over the sofa, and Laura's old college roommate stood by the punch bowl, giggling over old stories. "Time for games," Laura called out, walking through the crowd in a beautiful maternity dress that probably cost more than I paid in rent. She looked amazing, but something about the way she smiled made me uneasy. Her eyes kept meeting mine from across the room, holding my gaze a little too long. We played all the usual baby shower games, guessing how big her belly was using string, picking a date for the baby's arrival, and the silly game with melted chocolate bars and diapers. I ended up winning the belly measuring game, and Laura didn't seem happy about it. Throughout the party, she kept glancing at me in a strange way, like she was waiting for something. After the gift opening started, she made a big show of reacting to every little baby item. Each onesie and gadget received more excitement than the last. Then she got to my gifts. She held up the blanket and gently touched the design with her fingers. After a moment, she tapped her glass for attention. The room went quiet. My heart suddenly started beating faster, and I didn't know why. The air felt thick, like something was about to happen. It was getting hard to breathe. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," Laura began, one hand resting on her big belly. "But there's something else I need to say. I think it's time everyone knows who the father of my baby is." My heart started beating faster. Laura looked straight at me, and in that moment, I already knew. Even before she said the words, I could feel it. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. "The father," she said loudly, her voice filling the now silent room, "is Adam Chastain, Jessica's late husband." The world around me felt like it tilted. Through the loud ringing in my ears, I could still hear people gasping and whispering. Aunt Carolyn covered her mouth in shock. Laura's college friends huddled together, whispering quickly. But what hurt me the most was seeing the calm look on my parents' faces.
They weren't surprised.
They already knew. Before I could even begin to understand what was happening, Laura kept talking. Her voice was full of pride as she turned to face me. "Since this baby is Adam's only child, I have the right to half of everything he left behind. That means the house, the apartment, the money. My child deserves their father's inheritance." Everything started spinning. I grabbed the back of a chair to stop myself from falling. Then, my mom and dad stepped forward and stood on either side of Laura, like they were protecting her. "Jessica," Dad said, using his serious tone, "you need to do what's right. Your nephew deserves what belongs to him." Somehow, I found my voice, though it came out rough and dry. "You're lying. All of you are lying. Adam would never do this." Laura's smile changed. It turned cold and mean. She pulled out her phone. "Then how do you explain this?" She held up the screen, and my whole world shattered again. There they were, Adam and Laura, in each other's arms, kissing in what looked like a hotel room. Another picture showed them holding hands at a restaurant I didn't recognize. "He loved me," Laura said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He was going to leave you for me. We were planning to tell everyone." Then she stopped. Her eyes filled with tears, and they began running down her cheeks. But then the accident happened, and all our plans disappeared. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My body moved on its own. I grabbed my purse, pushed past the crowd of shocked guests, and stumbled out to my car. I heard Mom calling after me, but I was already backing out of the driveway. The drive home was a blur. My mind kept playing those pictures over and over, trying to understand them. The photos at the restaurant must have been during those business dinners Adam always talked about. The hotel? Probably one of the trips he said were for work. My phone started buzzing the moment I walked through the front door. Laura was sending me message after message, dozens of them. They were screenshots of her chats with Adam. "I don't love her anymore. I haven't for a long time. We'll tell everyone after the divorce. You're the only one I want. I can't wait to start our life together." One message after another popped up on my screen, and each one felt like a fresh cut to my heart. The dates on the messages showed their conversations went back for months. All this time, while I was going through painful fertility treatments, thinking I was the reason we couldn't have kids, my husband and my sister were planning a new life without me. That night, I couldn't sit still. I walked around my house, touching Adam's things, looking at the photos on the walls, wondering if any of it had been real. Had our whole life together been a lie? At 6 a.m. sharp, the phone rang again. It was my parents. I let it ring a few times before picking up. "Jessica, you need to be reasonable about this," Dad said, not even bothering to say hello. "The sooner you agree to give Laura her share of the inheritance, the easier this will be for everyone." His cold and confident voice made me angry. Easier for who? For Laura? For them? For all of us, Mom added. I realized they had me on speakerphone. "You don't want this to get messy, dear." I barely got the words out. "When did you know about them?" There was silence. A pause that said more than words could. Finally, Mom spoke. We've known for a while. Adam told us about 7 months before the accident." Her words hit me like a punch. 7 months. They knew for 7 months. And during that time, they let me cry at Adam's funeral while they pretended to comfort me. They kept taking the money I sent every month, even though they knew what he and Laura had done. Traitors. The word felt cold and final. "All of you." I ended the call and blocked their numbers. My hands were shaking when I opened my banking app, but I didn't think twice. I stopped the monthly payment I had been sending them. If they needed money, they could go ask their beloved Laura. 3 weeks passed, full of missed calls and unread messages. Then I got an email from Laura. She said she would sue me if I didn't give her half of everything Adam left behind. She used the word voluntarily, but it felt more like a threat. I couldn't bring myself to reply. I couldn't even think about Adam's betrayal or how many people must have seen them together while I stayed in the dark. Things at work got worse too. The whispers started. Some coworkers gave me sad looks. Others tried to hide their smiles. I could feel them talking behind my back. Then Larry, my boss, and one of the only real friends I had left, called me into his office. I broke down right in the middle of a client meeting. Larry, my boss, looked at me kindly and said, "Take some time off. Paid or unpaid. Whatever works for you. Your job will still be here when you're ready to come back." I nodded, feeling thankful, and packed up my things that same day. The next few weeks all felt the same. I barely left the house. I had my groceries delivered, didn't answer the door when it rang, and spent hours looking at old photos, trying to see what signs I had missed. Every happy memory now felt fake. Every moment from my marriage was ruined by the truth that Adam had been living a secret life with my own sister. Then I found out through Facebook, Laura had given birth to a baby boy. In the photo, she was smiling in her hospital bed. Our parents were standing beside her, looking proudly at their new grandson. The baby was wrapped in the cream-colored blanket I had made for her baby shower. It felt like a slap in the face. I closed the app quickly, but not before I saw the baby's name, Adam Jr. A week later, a thick envelope came in the mail. My hands shook as I opened it. I already knew what it was, a court notice. Laura was suing me for half of everything Adam had left me. She was saying her son deserved his father's inheritance. The legal letter was cold and clear. She wanted the house, half the money, and part of the downtown apartment. I spent 4 days looking for the right lawyer before I chose Paul Heyman. He had a great reputation for handling difficult inheritance cases. "Miss Chastain," he said, flipping through papers on his desk, his face calm but serious. "I have to be honest. Your sister has strong proof that she and your husband had a long-term relationship. There are text messages, photos, and even witness statements, including from your parents." He paused to adjust his glasses. "In cases like this, proof of a close relationship and a biological child usually makes the court feel sympathy for the child's side." I was still trying to understand this horrible news when my phone rang that evening. It was an unknown number. "Hello." I answered. "Is this Jessica Chastain?" a woman's voice asked. I didn't recognize it, but something about the way she spoke felt oddly familiar. "I'm Joyce Meyer, Adam's mother." The world felt like it tilted. I grabbed the kitchen counter for balance. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Adam told me he was an orphan. He said his parents died when he was little. He said he grew up in foster care." "I'm afraid that was another lie," she said, her voice bitter, but not cruel. "Would you meet with me? There are things you need to know. Things that might help you." We agreed to meet the next morning at a small cafe downtown. A neutral place. I got there early, my stomach full of nerves. I ordered a coffee and waited. I couldn't even drink my coffee. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the cup when she walked in. The way she looked shocked me. Adam had her eyes, her smile, even the same graceful way of moving. She walked just like him. "I was at the funeral," she said after we sat down in a quiet booth, far from anyone who might hear us. I sat in the back row, wearing a black dress and veil. I couldn't bring myself to speak to you then. Adam and I hadn't talked in years. Suddenly, I remembered her. The quiet woman who left before the service ended. At the time, I was too deep in my grief to think much about her. But now, the memory was clear. The elegant woman in black standing away from the crowd, her face hidden behind a dark veil. "Why are you telling me all this now?" I asked, trying not to sound too doubtful. After everything I'd learned about Adam, it was hard to trust anyone who had been close to him. Joyce reached into her bag and pulled out a worn manila envelope. The edges were bent, like it had been carried around for a while. "Because I heard what your sister is trying to do," she said. "And because, even with everything that happened, I don't want another woman to suffer because of my son's lies." Her fingers were shaking as she slid the envelope across the table. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling too. Inside were medical records from Hartford General Hospital, dated 11 years ago, just a year before Adam and I got married. As I read the paper, I felt the blood drain from my face. Complete azoospermia. Permanently sterile. No chance of natural conception. The medical words hit me like punches. Adam had taken this test when he was 26. He was heartbroken after getting those results, Joyce said quietly. It was one of the last things we ever talked about before we stopped speaking. I couldn't say a word. All those years I had spent trying to get pregnant, going to doctor after doctor, taking hormone shots, crying, blaming myself. It had all been a cruel lie. Adam had known he couldn't have children, but he never told me. When the court day finally came, the room was full. Laura sat in the front row, gently holding baby Adam Jr. Our parents were right next to her, looking proud and protective. She was dressed like the perfect grieving woman. Simple black dress, barely any makeup, and a sad, practiced expression on her face. When she took the stand, she played the role well. Her eyes sparkled with tears as she talked about her deep love for Adam. "All I want is what's fair for my son," she said, her voice shaking. "He deserves his father's legacy." My lawyer, Mr. Heyman, stayed calm and waited until she was done with her performance. He began speaking. "Your Honor, I'd like to show proof that Miss Ramsey's whole claim is false." He walked up to the judge and handed over the hospital records. The judge looked through the papers, her face showing no emotion. Laura's lawyer quickly stood up, arguing about where the documents came from and if they were real. Laura's calm face finally cracked. "Those papers are fake," she yelled, holding the baby tightly. "She made them up to steal my baby's inheritance." But Mr. Heyman stayed calm. "Your Honor," he said, "these records show that Mr. Chastain was not able to have children. So, we are asking for a DNA test to prove who the real father is." Laura smiled like she had won. "That's not possible," she said. "Adam was an orphan, and his body was cremated. There's no one to test." "Actually," Mr. Heyman replied, turning toward the crowd, "I'd like to introduce Joyce Meyer, Adam Chastain's biological mother." Joyce stood up, and a wave of surprise filled the courtroom. Even from my seat, I could see Laura's face turn pale. "I'm willing to take a DNA test," Joyce said clearly, "to find out if this baby is really my grandson." The judge nodded. "A DNA test is ordered. We'll meet again once the results are in." Laura looked like she was about to faint. Her skin was pale, and she swayed in her seat. Our mother rushed to hold her up, giving me a hateful look. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a small bit of hope. The courtroom was quiet as the judge opened the envelope with the DNA test results. Laura sat stiffly in her chair, the baby sleeping peacefully in her arms, unaware of everything going on. "The results clearly show," the judge said in a steady voice, that there is no genetic connection between the child and Mrs. Joyce Meyer. That means Adam Chastain is not the father of this child.
The whole room gasped.
Laura's face fell, and she started crying. Her mascara ran down her face. "Miss Ramsey," the judge said, her voice now strict, "do you want to explain why you lied to this court?" Laura hugged the baby tightly.
Her voice was weak.
"I was seeing more than one man at the time. When Adam died and was cremated, I thought no one would ever find out. He had money, and I needed it." "So, you tried to cheat your own sister?" the judge asked sharply. "You even used your parents to help with this lie." "I just wanted my baby to have a good life," Laura whispered. But this time, her act didn't work. Even our parents looked shocked, finally understanding just how far she had gone. The judge gave her ruling right away. This court rules in favor of the defendant, Jessica Chastain. All of Laura Ramsey's claims to the estate are dismissed permanently. "Miss Ramsey, you're lucky Mrs. Chastain hasn't taken legal action for attempted fraud." Outside the courthouse, my parents walked up to me. Mom was crying, and Dad looked older than I had ever seen him. I had never seen Dad look so old. "Jessica, sweetheart," Mom said, reaching for my hand. "We didn't know Laura was lying. We want to make things right. We've been having a hard time since you stopped sending the monthly money." I held up my hand to stop her. "Don't. Just don't." Then I took out my phone, blocked their numbers right there in front of them, and walked away without looking back. Joyce was waiting by my car. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. To my surprise, I laughed. "You know what? I think I am. Or I will be." I took a deep breath. I've been thinking about that downtown apartment Adam left me. I never really liked it. Too many memories. But maybe you'd like it. Her eyes widened. "Jessica, no. I couldn't. Please," I said firmly. "You gave me my life back with those medical records. Let me give you something in return." A week later, I handed her the keys. She started crying and hugged me tightly. "I never thought I'd have a daughter," she whispered. That was 4 months ago. My old family still tries to contact me through distant relatives and mutual friends. But I've cut those ties, too. Laura even sent a letter saying she was sorry, that she had changed and needed help with the baby. I threw it away without opening it. Instead, I now have weekly dinners with Joyce. We're slowly getting to know each other, sharing stories about Adam, the good and the bad. She's helping me understand that, even though Adam wasn't the man I believed he was, that doesn't erase all the happy moments we shared. Yesterday, I finally packed up the last of Adam's things. Joyce helped me donate some of it to charity and put the rest in storage. While we worked, she told me stories about Adam as a little boy before all the lies began. Somehow it helped. It made it easier to believe that a good part of him once existed. I'm not ready to date again yet, but I've started living my life. I've gone back to work full-time, joined a hiking club, and I'm even planning my first solo vacation. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I barely recognize the woman staring back at me. Life has a funny way of surprising you. I lost the family I was born into, but I found a new one I never expected. It's not the life I planned, but maybe it's the life I was meant to have all along.